The world is a mess. A giant eye with tentacles appeared and raised a barrier around Earth, trapping everyone inside. Good thing it did that, otherwise everyone would have grabbed their rocket and fled to Mars with nowhere to run. The eye forced humanity to fight for it. Some genius saw the magic barrier glowing and thought it was a great idea to try breaking the shield with a bank. Result: the bank came flying right back at him and crushed him to death. In the middle of all this chaos, we meet our protagonist, Lin. How he receives a message with a spin wheel full of prizes. The wheel spun and landed on Legendary, which had a 1 chance. His phone lit up in all sorts of colors, letting him know he won 5 talents. Some were completely useless. One made any food taste amazing. Another let him pee 10 meters away without splashing against the wind, and one said he would always be in a good mood. Only 2 actually mattered. One removed all his fear, and the rarest of all, king of soft rice. Every woman stronger than him would fall in love with him. How feels a sharp headache. And when he looks around, he can see a floating screen above, people showing their stats. He was the only one with that many talents. He meets a girl named Lin Xiaoyun, and soon the floating eye announces the first mission, a dungeon. Random groups to fight monsters. The good news is that death there wasn't permanent. The bad news is that the pain of dying was very real. Everyone got teleported. Li Yunxiao wakes up in a place called the Spider Mother's Lair with a group of 10 people. They walked into the monster's den, scared out of their minds, when a spider jumps out of nowhere and kicks a girl's head clean off with 1 swipe. Everyone panicked and ran away, leaving Hao behind. He decided to fight back, grabbed a rock to smash the thing, but when he looked at the spider, it was making the cutest little face. And its status said friendly. Hao couldn't even bring himself to attack. The little spider started rubbing against him, and he quickly figured out why he wasn't being attacked. It was his crazy talent of being loved by stronger women. Knowing the power worked on monsters too, the ability became completely broken. MC went to explore the dungeon. Along the way he finds piles of bodies, and more spiders started showing up following him around. It got to the point where he had a whole spider gang. Suddenly he finds the boss spider sleeping on top of a treasure chest. The big booty spider wakes up holding a scythe, completely confused. When the little spiders carried the boy over to her, his talent had already taken effect on her, and the spider started tearing his clothes off. MC tries to scream in desperation, but she covers his mouth to do some very questionable things to him. All I know is that by the end he's wearing a web outfit and she's having the best day of her life. He spotted the chest just sitting there and touched it. The goddess Agatha awakens in his mind, congratulating him for clearing the dungeon. As a pacifist, the reward was a golden classbook. Monster contractor. If his spirit is higher than the target's, he can form contracts and tame creatures just like in an RPG. Like a true Pokemon master, he accepted the new class and went to test the power Hell looked at. The difficulty level to tame the boss lady. He thought it would be impossible to tame the big sister, but to his surprise it was way too easy. Her spirit was 6 and his was 8. The boy activates the power and closes the contract with the giant spider. Out of nowhere the freaky spider disappears and becomes his shadow. With the contract done, he became the only person in the world with a boss monster as a pet. The goddess announces that the mission is over and everyone is teleported back. Rewards for killing monsters will be sent to their terminals. Agatha tells them that if they think her name, a window will appear. Everyone starts checking their system screens, exploring the shop and all that, but our protagonist can't see anyone else's. Then Agatha says there's no time to waste. They have 1 hour to form groups before phase 2 begins. Still being cheeky, he opens Agatha's system and it looks exactly like his. He jokes that she copied his interface and should respect his intellectual property. Then someone rushes over his little sister, Suine. She grabs his wrist, saying she was worried and asking if he got hurt. He awkwardly says he's fine, but notices the Spider Queen doesn't like how close Suine is, so she can sense things even from inside his shadow. Still, since her favorability is high and they're under contract, he figures she won't actually do anything. He pulls his hand back and reminds Suine that the goddess said no one would really die, so he's fine. She realizes he's right and gets a little embarrassed, then says she's glad he talked to her earlier. She wanted to help him, and that gave her the strength to resist. Otherwise, she would have been eliminated. Of course, he wants to keep her close. She proudly asks how many points he got, saying she earned 40. He realizes he hasn't checked yet, opens his window and sees 0 points. He gets it since he didn't kill any monsters, but still, not even 1 point for clearing the dungeon. This system feels unfair. Then he checks again and notices he's ranked 30-50. She tells him not to worry, Rank 3000 is about average, so Agatha probably still favors him. He feels a little awkward, then notices the bodyguard is ranked first. Wow, Brother Wei is number 1. She nods. Wei didn't just score a lot of points, he also pulled a group under him. In this world, people need allies to stay alive. Holding his arm, she urges him to come along with her around. Nothing will happen to him. He's puzzled. She's only a little weaker than Wei. So why is her score so much lower? Something feels off, especially after hearing he already gathered followers. He figures she may become a problem later. But since she's been nice, he decides to see what's going on first. They head into an alley, where Wei and the others are waiting. He turns and says he wanted to speak with Miss Lin. In this new world, your old status means nothing. Back in the dungeon, both she and that so-called big shot knelt before him. Now only strength matters. Lowering her head, she says she knew something was wrong with Wei Kai. In the dungeon he used kids and old people as bait for the spiders. She hated it, but he claimed it was for better results. Now she sees that wasn't true, and he admits it. He wants power to get whatever he wants, and the men behind him prove people already obey him. Then he says she'll be his woman. Together they'll become top servants of gods and demons, and gain rewards beyond imagination. She rejects him right away. He's completely wrong, and she never thought he'd become this kind of person without laws holding them back. Men like him show their true side. After just a few hours, he's already acting rotten. The protagonist takes her hand and tells her it's fine. These people are the problem. At least he promises hell never become like Wei. That hits her hard. Wei sneers at Hao, saying he got 0 points and is useless if he has to hide behind a woman. He doesn't belong in a world ruled by strength. He stays calm while she steps forward. She calls Wei Kai disgusting. He doesn't care. This is the new world, and since she's strong, she should join him. Staying with this weakling will only drag her down. She turns her back on him, says they're done, and tells him he changed way too fast. Then she walks off hand in hand with Hao. Xiaobei isn't about to accept that. He calls out that Xiaobei is the person he likes most here, and he won't just let her leave. There are many strong people now, and only by standing with him can she survive. She fires back that she knows he's only using her. She refuses, but he coldly tells her it's not her choice. Even if killing is restricted in the main city, he can still stop her. Without waiting, she grabs Hao and runs. One thug yells that if Xiaobei were alone, she might get away. Then someone leaps at her, and both of them hit the ground, rolling apart. Wei mocks her for sticking with trash. She knows she could escape alone, but she can't leave Hao. The thug says her heart is too soft. Even now, she's still protecting a loser. He says hell teach the kid a lesson. Without strength, nobody survives here. Then he orders the others to kill the protagonist. One of them hesitates, asking if killing in the main city is really allowed. Wei brushes it off. The elder god never banned it, and MC has 0 points anyway. He plays dumb, asking if they're really going to gang up on a kid. They almost feel bad, but say he's useless, and they're following orders. Xiaoyuan is shaken, but someone holds her back and tells her not to interfere. He wants her to watch the protagonist get beaten. The protagonist, meanwhile, thinks he doesn't know whether killing has a penalty, but he's not going to let them kill him. Since they came for his life, he doesn't care what happens next, and quietly starts his jutsu. Then the Spider Queen appears, scythe in hand. Everyone freezes, asking if that's the same boss from the dungeon. They try to run, but she raises her scythe and cuts them down. Wei is stunned, wondering why the spider boss is here, and why she seems to be helping Hao. On top of that, she's massive and insanely fast. One survivor drops to his knees, begging for mercy and calling himself blind and stupid. Another hurriedly takes back everything he said, praising MC and begging to be spared too, but the girl behind them isn't having it. The man starts whining to Xiao Yan about all the years he served her, but she punches him in the mouth and calls him trash. Then she keeps hitting him, punches, kicks, everything. How can a man like that even call himself a man? He makes her sick watching how righteous she is. Hao becomes even more interested in teaming up with her. She apologizes for dragging him into this mess, and he brushes it off. Then she asks what he plans to do about the unhinged Wei Kai. He thinks it over. Wei is dangerous. He gave up. The things turned bad, and someone like that can't be left around. Wei starts begging Hao for mercy, but the system warns that his real thoughts are all about revenge, crushing the protagonist and burning his ashes. It tells him to kill Wei now. The Spider Queen is already moving in. Xiao Yan realizes MC might really kill him. Even if it feels wrong, she knows she can't step in. Wei did try to murder him. Hao, being as sly as ever, notices she wouldn't like him killing Wei. So he says Brother Kai has already paid enough and claims hell forgive him. Wei immediately thanks him over and over. He then turns to the Spider Queen, telling her not to attack Brother Kai. He explains that because of their contract, she strikes anyone who means him harm, and he can't fully control it. Wei drops to the ground, yelling that it's unfair and insisting he doesn't want to hurt Hao, but the scythe is already coming down. The protagonist coldly tells him to go join his men. Just then, Agatha appears. She declares that in this space, her warriors must not harm one another. Hao is confused. He already killed 3 people, so why stop this one now? Wei is beyond relieved and starts praising the Elder God. But MC still wants to test how far Agatha's favoritism goes. He loudly orders the spider not to kill Wei, while secretly commanding her to do it. In his mind, Agatha freezes the Spider Queen before the scythe lands. Wei shakes all over and even wets himself with the spider stopped. He suddenly gets bold again, mocking her for being all scary a second ago and now not moving at all. Then he praises Agatha and reports that Hao killed 3 people. He begs her to punish him. He looks at the goddess while the system whispers that she still seems friendly toward him, so maybe he should test her one more time. Still, Hao decides not to push it. The girl worries for him, wondering if he'll be okay if he really can't control that spider. Wei keeps talking, saying that even if the protagonist didn't kill directly, the spider is connected to him. If she isn't removed, more people could die. Looking at MC, Wei thinks Agatha is protecting him like a fool. He figures that without the spider, he won't act so arrogant. He meanwhile switches to his innocent act. He tells the Elder Goddess he didn't know the rule, and the spider only moved to protect him because of Brother Kai. Agatha answers that from this moment on, the rule is now official. No one may kill each other in this place. Wei can't believe it. The goddess saw everything, so why won't she punish Hao? Worse, he still has that spider to him. It feels like the protagonist is cheating. MC walks up to the spider and tells her to return to his shadow. Then he tells the girl they're safe now. Wei starts losing his mind. None of this makes sense. 3 of his men were killed, yet Hao somehow has no responsibility, and he still gets to keep the spider. Wei refuses to accept it. He shouts that the Elder God is being unfair. At once his expression changes and lightning strikes him. So that's Agatha's answer. The air goes still. She asks why the goddess attacked him, and Hao shrugs, joking that maybe Wei was just too ugly. The system then tells him he survived thanks to his soft rice talent, but warns him to be careful after that. The goddess leaves. The girl asks where the spider went and whether he can command her. He says he's not sure. Back in the last dungeon, she chose to follow him. He's just lucky. Then he admits that honestly, he wanted to run too, but couldn't bring himself to leave her behind. She's touched and promises to protect him. Taking his hand warmly, she tells him not to be scared. Everything is fine now, and at least the Elder Goddess didn't punish him. Poor girl, she's completely falling for it. She thinks she was supposed to protect Hao, but in the end he saved her instead. The protagonist is thrilled. Perfect. Now she won't see him as a bad person. But then Agatha speaks again. Death may be avoided, yet breaking the rule still brings punishment. The violators will now be judged. Hao starts glowing pink, and the moment Agatha touches him, he vanishes. He's thrown into another place now. He complains that the goddess said she wouldn't punish him, then did this anyway, so had better be more careful. He pats the spider and thanks her for all her hard work, even getting caught because of him. Then he asks where Sister Shiolian is, making the spider a little jealous. Agatha appears again. She addresses her beloved warriors, saying that before the main announcement, there's something they need to know. By now they've all received their panels and learned that the system exists. Points are how the dungeon grades your performance. In this one, only your monster kills mattered. Next time, the scoring could be totally different. In this world, points matter more than anything. Money is gone. You can spend points on gear, accessories, books, and potions. Since humans like trading with each other, you can also transfer points by thinking about it. This is the place where your missions will begin. Nothing can invade this zone, but that doesn't mean you're safe from death. Now for the next mission, and everyone gets teleported at once. She says the mission will last 2 months. You can earn points by hunting or exploring, but if you go 48 hours without getting any, you'll be erased, and once you're dead here, you're dead for good. The goddess leaves. The barrier drops, and the mission officially starts. Everyone immediately takes off, rushing for the shops to grab potions. Li Yunxiao sighs. He got no points, and now death is permanent, so he has to be a lot more careful. Then he changes his mind. If he has no points, he'll get them from someone who does. His eyes land on the perfect target, Brother Wei. At that moment, his spider shows up. Li Yunxing tells Wei not to panic. He only wants to talk. Wei tries acting tough, but one move and the spider slams him into the wall. Seriously, he's pinned there with no way out. Wei starts panicking. If he stays stuck for 48 hours, he's finished. So he quickly offers a deal. He says he has plenty of points and can give Li Yunxiao some as an apology. Li Yunxing, the 1100th, realizes. Wei caught on fast, so he says fine, hand over all your points and he'll let you go, but Wei pushes back. Hell, give some. Not everything, he still needs enough to stay alive. The spider keeps staring him down and he can tell he's still wavering. She warns that Wei clearly hasn't given up on revenge and is probably bluffing. Lin Hao tells him it's not really his choice anymore. The spider seems attached to him now and might wrap him up forever. He even jokes that he needs items to keep her under control. Besides, the goddess won't punish him if Wei ends up as a puppet. Wei glances at the spider, who's happily showing herself off, and internally, he knows he's doomed. Still, he argues that giving up everything is the same as dying. So he offers 80 points instead. He begs Lin Hao to take 80 and leave him enough to survive. The spider notes that he's really getting desperate. Maybe he still thinks he can rise again later. In the end, they make the trade. The system asks if Lin, the protagonist, accepts 80 points from Wei. Of course he does. The shop has accessories, equipment, books, and potions, but the gear only goes up to blue rank. The accessories section includes things like medicine, rope, and other survival tools. The other sections are pretty self-explanatory. What stands out is the potion section. There's only one item there, the advancement potion. Everything is sorted by price. After looking it over, Lin Hao decides not to waste points yet since he still doesn't know what kind of danger is coming, so instead, he buys a watch, a portable shop that lets him purchase items anywhere. With spending figured out, all that's left is learning how to grow stronger. In the book section, he notices the other books cost 200 and aren't even that great, so the one he got earlier must be insanely valuable. At the top are profession skills, and right now he only has the monster skill. Under that are regular skills, which have to be bought and equipped before they can be used. They cover body strengthening, agility, mental power, and jumping ability. He also learns that once a stat reaches 9, you need an advancement potion to break through. So if his spirit goes from 8 to 9 and he uses the spirit potion, he'll reach level 1 at 20 points, head hit level 2, and it keeps going from there. But then he notices a problem. The books only raise stats up to 17. So how is anyone supposed to reach level 2? And that old man over there is still stuck at level 1, so there must be other ways to gain stats, probably through mission rewards or treasures. Since the king of soft rice can only make contracts with targets stronger than him, and monster contracts need more spirit, that's the stat he decides to focus on. So he buys a normal quality level 0 mental training book. The moment he uses it, the knowledge enters his mind, and he starts meditating. Until someone suddenly interrupts him. A stranger pops up and introduces himself as Zhenshi, even handing over a business card. Lin Hao stares at it in confusion. A second-hand house salesman. Why would anyone be passing out cards in a world like this? The man awkwardly apologizes and says it's just a habit. Then he gets to the point. He wants MC to join their group. The system warns that since he's a salesman, he'll keep pushing even if you reject him 10,000 times. He says he's already with his sister and turns him down. The guy still tries to press him, but then someone steps in from behind and tells him to back off. The kid clearly isn't interested. Zhenshi quickly apologizes to his captain and jokes that maybe he wanted the little brother too. Then he backs off. Lin Hao can only wonder what is wrong with these people's talents. Why is everyone trying to recruit him? He thanks the man who helped, and the guy brushes it off like it was nothing while the protagonist checks his stats. Strength 6, Constitution 6, and the rest are balanced. He's already using books too, making him seriously strong. The man introduces himself as Luke and asks for his name. Li Hao answers plainly. Looking at those balanced stats, Lin, the 1100th, can tell this guy is no joke, so he asks if that salesman was trying to scam him and steal his points. Luke SEC says no. The guy was just recruiting. He also noticed he bought the portable shop watch for someone that young. He says that was a smart move. Then Luke admits his team, King's Army, already has more than 15 members, and he wants the protagonist to join too. Li Hao's screen updates. This guy gathered 15 people in just half an hour. He's a strong leader, but he may dislike other men, so be careful. After seeing that, MC politely thanks him and says he'll talk it over with his sister first, but he has no intention of joining. Hunting alone with his spider will be way easier, so he leaves Luke standing there awkwardly. One of Luke's Sias men comments that the kid has real potential. He may look weak, but he isn't. Luke's Diaz just calls him an inexperienced child and says there's no hurry. They'll come around eventually. Then someone asks why he's saying that. Did he already have trouble with the boy? The man awkwardly admits there was a small misunderstanding, nothing huge, but if Lin Hao gets stronger, he doubts the kid will spare them. Luke pulls out blue-grade elite gear and calmly says not to worry if he becomes a problem. He'll deal with it himself. They're teammates now. The man gratefully promises to get stronger and protect him as much as he can with this team backing him. He'll evolve much faster than that idiot. Then he'll finally get revenge on Lin Hao. Meanwhile, Lin Hao, the protagonist, talks to his spider. He realizes he still hasn't given her a real name, and calling her sister Spider all the time feels strange. After checking his translator, he decides to call her Little Chirp. She gets so happy that she throws her arms around him. And right then, the other girl shows up. She finally finds him and calls out to Brother Lin. Li Hao asks why she's still here, and she says she came to apologize. Then she asks for his hand. He gets confused, wondering if she's trying to give him something, and tells her she doesn't need to. But she insists and places an item in his hand. It's an amulet that can block even a fatal hit. She tells him to keep it for exploring dangerous places.
Li Hao instantly falls au quart.
He saw that item in the shop and it costs around 40 points. She's spending almost everything on him. Then she turns to leave. She says goodbye and tells him to stay safe because she still has other things to do. Feeling shy, he tells Little Chirp that if she ever needs help later, they'll help her too. After that, he gets serious. Little Chirp pulls out her scythe. As the barrier is about to come down, the crowd bolts forward like shoppers on Black Friday. They glance back and spot Lin Hao lagging behind, looking exhausted. Of course he's faking it so nobody learns what he can really do. The others think he's dead weight and rush off to grab exploration points first. Once they're gone, MC checks around and sees no one nearby. So he tells Little Chirp she can come out now, and she immediately scoops him up. He's getting pretty spoiled by this. Still, it helps. She bursts forward at full speed and tears across the map. In no time, she's already explored a huge area, leaving everyone else confused. People notice a line cutting across the map right where they wanted to go and panic, since that means fewer points for them. Meanwhile, in Little Chirp's arms, Lin Hao starts planning. After 5 kilometers, he only has 1 point. Exploration pays way less than he hoped, and they still haven't found any monsters. The safe zone must be much bigger than expected. Even though the goddess said this place had all kinds of creatures, so this mission isn't just about fighting, it's also about surviving in the wild. Thanks to Little Chirp, they've already covered a huge distance, but other than exploration points, they still haven't run into any monsters. Right now, he needs 200 points for the advancement potion. Nearby, a group of goblins is roasting a forest goblin. Strength 5. The system marks them as part of this mission's monster set. Lin Hao isn't very interested, since they're weak, but the spider is dying to start slaughtering them. Then a new quest pops up. Wipe out the forest goblins for 5 points if they attack from stealth. He'll get bonus points from the panic too. He calls for Little Chirp, and she drops from the tree upside down. He tells her to sneak in and strike quietly while the goblins are busy eating. A giant spider suddenly lands on their backs. They never had a chance. She kills 2 right away, and the others turn and run. He gets 5 points, then realizes they can't be allowed to escape. He tells her to finish them all, and she throws webs over the rest. They try to get away, but there's no chance of that. Not happening, but more goblins rush in almost at once. These reinforcements are stronger, and since they're archers in a group, Little Chirp starts having a hard time. How hesitates. Should he jump in and help, tell her to retreat, or run somewhere else? Any move feels risky in a place packed with monsters. Worse, even more goblins are closing in, and these ones are great at tracking. He realizes hiding won't work anymore. He basically kicked the whole nest. So he checks his watch for options and finds 2 items. One is a 10-point pot that makes a smoke screen, the other is a 2-point scroll that teleports you to a safe spot within 1,000 meters after a 10-second chant. Since he's still safe in the tree, he buys the scroll, uses it, and counts down. Little Chirp keeps fighting hard until 0, then she vanishes. He lets out a breath. They should be safe now. She appears beside him and immediately hugs him. Poor thing got pretty beat up. That also lets him figure out something important if she gets too far away. She's pulled back to him automatically. She looks down for not doing more, but he comforts her. There were just too many goblins, and she's okay. Then he checks the map and sees the area from earlier wasn't marked at all. Looks like monster zones change how exploration works, so all he can do is keep moving. Later, he comes across a goblin fortress that looks half empty, because many of them left to chase them. A new quest appears: destroy the goblin fortress. The more damage he causes, the more points he'll get. He's thrilled. This is exactly what he wanted. Now he can get revenge and earn points too. He pulls out fire dynamite from the shop. Junk in most places, but perfect here. After laying out the plan for Little Chirp, he sets the place ablaze as goblins run through the fire. She cuts them down. By the end, he's burned 5 fortresses and earned 30 points. Points are hard to get here, but he's fired up. If this keeps going, he can buy the advancement potion tomorrow. The downside is obvious. His attacks are drawing more goblins, and now they're tracking them. Little Chirp suddenly goes alert and asks if he felt that too. Then the newcomers show up. Luca gone away. Draw. At least Chirp caught them fast. How stays calm and figures the old man joined up with these guys. Way is right in the center. The system notes that he's enjoying the power boost from using his team's items, and he's clearly aiming for revenge later. The bad news is his stats are high. Their plan of funneling resources into a few people really worked. A small goblin jumps from the bushes, and in one instant Way cuts it down. How notices the strike was even faster than Little Chirp's, and that clearly annoys her, but her status shows something huge. Because she's overflowing with love for him, she has a trait that lets her one-shot anyone with lower stats. The system warns him not to let this guy live. He doesn't need the warning. He already decided that. Lucas Group is feeling good, saying they just need to keep killing monsters so the exploration team will reward them with better gear later. Way is thinking the same in a colder way. Since these fools don't share things evenly, he just has to stay strongest to get the most resources. Once he gets 100 points, hell, buy monster suppression oil, coat his weapon with it, and kill that spider. Too bad the spider is already behind him. He starts thinking about killing how next, then suddenly wonders why the ground looks so far away. He looks up and sees what's above him. Luca blurts out, asking what just happened. He shouts for everyone to stay sharp. A monster spider is here. The whole group starts shaking. They thought this was only a goblin forest. They're stunned after pouring so many resources into Way. He got erased in a single second. Little Chirp vanishes just as fast as she struck. Way screams about the monster, and Luca yells that one day he'll avenge this. His teammates are amazed, thinking Lukak is incredible. But Lucas is really just relieved he spotted her leaving in time and said that to keep the group from breaking down in fear. On the 3rd day, a goblin is chasing a young pair. The girl is terrified, and the guy says he doesn't know what to do, then turns around and shoots the warrior girl in the knee with a crossbow. She collapses, unable to move as a large goblin walks closer. He uses her as bait and yells for the monster to chase him, instead bleeding on the ground. She cries that her family helped him so much, so how could he do this? The guy snaps back, calling her trash. He says she kept begging for gifts even though she knew he was poor, and had wanted to ditch her for a long time. Then a goblin with a huge axe appears. She looks up at him and says he's going with her. The screen turns red, and that lunatic gets exactly what he deserves. Meanwhile, Little Chirp keeps killing goblins, and How notices that whenever goblins take over an area, that part of the map turns dark again. So this isn't only exploration, it's a fight over territory too. To really gain points, they'll need a better way to crush the goblin force. Just the two of them using hit and run tactics won't earn much at all. Then he gets an idea and looks at Chirp, who's holding a goblin. Its description says some goblins are edible and full of protein, but these were made by the god 20, so eating them causes something awful. And Little Chirp is already lifting it toward her mouth. He panics and stops her before she can take a bite. That close call makes him remember she doesn't need food anyway. She runs on his energy. He's the one who has to eat. The problem is there doesn't seem to be any fruit in the forest. So he checks the watch and looks for food to fill his stomach. The first recommendations are ridiculous. Phoenix heart, dragon liver, priced at 666,000 points, so he adds a price filter. That finally brings up a low-grade ration for 5 points. Still, he wants to save points, and over 2 months head have to burn at least 30 just to stay fed. Right then, a genius idea hits him. He remembers his so-called useless talent. Everyone else lives on pills, while head have to waste all his points on food. Then someone wonders what that kid is doing over there. How is crouched on the ground like a cow, chewing grass. Thanks to his trash can talent, even wild grass tastes good to him and digests just fine. Still, he looks completely insane, gnawing on the ground. A while later, another goblin goes down. Little Chirp looks a bit worn out. These taller goblins are much tougher. Even with traps helping out, it doesn't help that they work together really well. Even so, she still looks pleased. He praises Sister Chirp, and she shyly acts like it's nothing, though she's clearly happy. Then the system warns him that she's struggling against these goblins, and as her contractor, he needs to help her grow stronger. Hao sees two choices: find someone who can help her, or try to power her up himself. He isn't sure what upgrades will do, but he's now reached 300 points. Just then, a glow surrounds him, and his system says meditation won't help anymore unless he uses an advancement potion. So this is the perfect time to buy it. The only problem is, he has just 3 shop purchases left, even though only 5 days have passed. He asks Chirp to carry him back to base. She happily does, and they return to the starting area. Hao buys the potion and drinks it in one go. The change is instant. His thoughts get faster, his sight sharper, and he starts sensing things he never could before. Back where he's from, people use potions like this too, but they're illegal. He figures his stronger mind boosted not just intelligence but also perception, and how fast he handles information. The advancement gives him 1 skill point. He can improve his monster contract to seek another fighter, or gamble on strengthening Little Chirp. Since he still hasn't found any other strong monster girls, he bets on her, and gets a morale boost skill. As a monster contractor, he can now pour spiritual power into his creatures. He can use it 5 times a day. Pretty much all his powers are going to revolve around his creatures. Since basic mental training is useless now, it's time to buy a new one. After setting up his next round of training, he heads back out hunting with Little Chirp. The green goblins start getting slaughtered. He tells Little Chirp to spare one of the small ones, walks up to it and tells it to attack him. The goblin swings its hammer, but Hao just stays put, letting the barrier take the blow. This 40-point item is absolutely worth it. The hit only used 1 of his energy. Now that he's tested defense, it's time to test attack. He throws a punch while Little Chirp watches, curious about what he's doing. The goblin thinks he's an idiot and gets ready to hit again. Hao calls this his strongest attack, but the goblin blocks and nothing happens. Even the goblin looks confused. Then the thing charges again, and he tells Sister Chirp to go ahead. The problem is, the morale boost has already run out. He curses under his breath, realizing he didn't get stronger at all. He's still basically the king of being soft. Then she walks over and gives him a gentle pat on the head. At least Little Chirp got stronger. The boost only added 1 point to agility and 1 to strength, but the change was huge. Looks like the best way to grow now is to focus hard on spirit, so he'll spend his points on spiritual upgrades, and whatever useful stuff comes from chests. With that morale boost, Little Chirp can handle the forest goblins just fine. Meanwhile, the goblin is getting completely destroyed. While the poor mother and daughter beg for help, the goblin raises its huge hammer to attack, but someone jumps in at the last second. Our hero shows up and saves them like a superhero. Over with Luke, he warns them the goblin fortress is just ahead, so they prepare to strike. But when they get there, the fortress is already burning and goblin bodies are scattered everywhere. In the flames, Luca sees who's behind it and quickly tells everyone to stay calm. The last time he saw this monster, it wasn't nearly this strong. Even with better gear now, he still isn't sure they can beat it. Little Chirp suddenly dashes past them all and disappears. It's insanely broken. Luke lets out a long breath, while his men start asking questions. Captain, where did this monster that keeps wiping out forest goblins come from? Luca has no clue, so he guesses the gods summoned it to make things harder for them. Still, he tells them not to worry once they're stronger. They'll take it on. For the past few days, warriors have been spotting a purple blur racing around and killing goblins. Some were afraid of it, while others thought it was a helper sent by the gods. Others were mad because it kept ruining their missions. As more players spread out, the ancient gods' warriors started taking over the goblin forest. After a month, Nearly half the area had been explored, and everyone agreed they had to find the source of the goblins and destroy it before time ran out. Our protagonist thinks they can keep spreading rumors about the spider all they want. Nobody will notice a skinny, weak kid like me. These last few days have been rough. He spent a lot of points healing Little Chirp, but it paid off. He earned another 60 points and learned that after evolving, she can now move 500 meters farther away. Too bad the morale boost only works when he's close, so he still has to stay nearby. After killing 10 goblins in 1 minute, he gets an achievement and a small chest. The guy grins, thinking he's been grinding this whole time and even got a purple chest working hard. Yeah right, you lazy bum. He reaches for the chest, but it slips away from his hand. The system says Agatha's achievement chest can't be opened here, and he must return to the starting fortress. It also warns that his forest goblin enemy achievement has activated. The goblins know about him now and are joining forces to attack. He stays calm.
En alliance?
They're already coming in groups of 10, so how much worse can it get? Inside the goblin base, a shaman starts casting, and soon an army marches out. There are even centaur warriors among them. Meanwhile, our guy calmly chews grass and thinks a huge group must be coming, so it's better to stay out of the moonlight. Little Chirp keeps getting stronger, and he's bought some new items too. Too bad he still has to hide in the back. Standing by a pile of rubble, he plans a trap with Little Chirp's webs. Since he's killed so many goblins here, he knows they'll search this area first. She also spreads extra webs around to warn her if anything breaks through. He's got a return scroll ready too, just in case. Then Chirp warns him the monsters are coming, and the army arrives. Centaurs are smart and fierce, but the slave collars on them have sealed away their minds. Right now they're just beasts forced to obey the goblins. Then the goblin cavalry appears. Forest goblins riding centaurs fighting them. Hedon is rough, so the smart move is to knock the goblins off first. A mission pops up: defeat the cavalry force for 20 points. He sees the centaurs and decides to use the morale boost right away. Little Chirp launches herself forward, cutting through them, but it isn't easy. More enemies circle behind her, and she takes a hard hit as blasts go off everywhere, so she pulls back. To our protagonist, the whole enemy force chases after her, but that was the plan. Now Chirp tugs on the webs, and the rocks he set up come crashing down from above. She zips through the falling rocks and wipes out everything in her path. But something's wrong. Why didn't the mission clear? Could it be? A shaman appears behind her and casts a spell to strike, but our boy reacts fast and yanks her back just in time. The bad part is that exposed where he was hiding. Forest goblin shaman. This goblin uses magic to boost his physical power, then turns invisible to ambush you. He's smart and dangerous. The monster's illusion starts rambling, and our protagonist thinks there's no way he can win this, so he decides he's out. He snaps his fingers, says bye, and the shaman smashes the ground in rage. Back at the base, the 5 gold scroll lets him choose exactly where to return. Hearing something nearby, he quickly tells Little Chirp to hide in the shadows. That goblin shaman was way too strong. There's no chance he can beat him yet. First, he needs a quiet place to open the chest. The problem is the base is packed with people, including Luke, who's now decked out in heavy armor. This guy built a team, took everyone's points, and somehow still made them trust him. Good thing the system warned me, or I might fallen for it too. But while some people were doing great, others were doing terribly. One man who used to be rich is already begging. Kid, I own houses back in the real world. I'll give you boxes of cash. Just give me some points and protect me. The protagonist tells him to get lost, and heads into a shady alley. Looks like nobody followed me. Now I can open this thing. He hopes for something that boosts his fighting power, or at least raises his spirit to level 2 and makes Little Chirp stronger. The chest starts to glow. Item rarity goes from white to gold, and the shop mostly sells blue rank or lower. But what he got is purple, a purple substitution pill. This pill makes others see the user as a different being. The user doesn't actually change, but to everyone else it's a level 5 illusion. Prophecy skills can detect it, and it lasts 24 hours. He thinks perfect. The shaman was only level 1, so this should fool anything up to level 4 or 5. That means he could turn into a forest goblin, sneak close, and take the shaman out. The only issue is talking, so he asks the shopping assistant for something that lets him communicate with monsters. The shop offers goblin flavor translator gum. Eat it, and you can talk with any goblin for 24 hours. Cost 5 points. He jokes that this AI is better than ChatGPT. Ask and it delivers. Now he's ready. The shaman and the goblin stand over their fallen men. He's muttering in goblin speech, but the system translates find the enemy who killed our comrades, and use the horn to call reinforcements. Kill any human you find. Their target is the whole human race. The smaller goblins rush off at once. One little goblin wanders around by itself, looking calm and lost. Then it turns its head, and guess who's standing behind it? Even while attacking, she still looks beautiful, but that poor goblin is finished. Two nearby goblins hear the scream and ask what that was, but then our tiny protagonist shows up, looking exhausted and beat up. The goblins are totally confused. Of course, that's the item's effect. Right now, they all see him as one of them. He tells them he spotted the enemy nearby, and they blow the horn. The shaman comes over with the others, and looks at him like he's just another goblin. Did you see the horrible spider? And her master? He answers fast. Yeah, I saw them. They went that way. He's thrilled. This is working perfectly. They don't suspect a thing. And the shaman is so relaxed he doesn't even have his skills active. Then the protagonist says he has something important to tell the shaman about that person. The shaman insists they need to keep chasing him right now. Then our boy declares he's here for revenge. The shaman turns in confusion, but the protagonist is already behind him and takes him down. Some goblins rush in to avenge their leader, and he uses morale boost. Without the shaman, it's just centaurs and turtle goblins. Now, nothing he can't deal with fast. He even wonders what his next ability will be, since this boost is crazy strong. One goblin tries to scare him, saying goblins are blessed by the gods and killing them will bring a curse. He doesn't care until the system pops up. He killed the leader of this forest goblin tribe, survived their attack, and earned the achievement Intermediate Goblin Enemy. Its effect means every goblin, young or old, now sees him as their top target. So the goblin's so-called curse was just their hatred growing stronger. That means he needs a way to wipe them out fast. The last two goblins are confused because he's just standing there. Then he calmly says he only spared them for questions, and if their answers don't match, the one who lies dies. This kid is a monster. At interrogation, where's your main base? Where's your great shaman? How strong is he? The questions just keep coming. The goblins panic. Sure, they're dead, but he tells them to relax, answer everything, and they'll be fine. Then the scene cuts to Lukek and his group. Have you noticed the goblins we've met lately are way stronger than the ones from the start? The army's getting stronger? So what? We're getting stronger too, and there's still no match for these fists. No one at the meeting looks worried, but Lukek cuts in. His team pushed deep into the forest and triggered something called a main mission. He explains it can be shared, and others can join in. He's not trying to scare them, but this time they probably need to work together. Everyone checks their screens, but since they aren't in Lukek's party, they still don't fully trust him. Main mission: cleanse the goblin forest. The goblins were never part of this world, and the altar is what brought them here. To end this, the source has to be destroyed. Objective: wipe out the Goblin Thunder tribe. Any soldier of the ancient god who gets this mission can share it, and rewards will depend on contribution. The guy with glasses says Lukek should lead, but Lukek doesn't want all the pressure on himself. So he proposes a parliament where everyone gets a vote. The blue-haired girl isn't happy with that. If the group makes a choice she doesn't like, she's out. Lukek accepts that people can act on their own, as long as they help finish the mission. Meanwhile, back with the girl's master. Even this defended base can't handle little chirp after the morale boost. Once the goblins are wiped out, no one can leak anything from the ones he beat and questioned. He pieces together the truth. Every goblin in the forest answers to one force, the Thunder tribe. Their strongest figure is the great shaman, who guards the altar. As long as it remains, more goblins will keep appearing. Right then, the protagonist gets the same mission as Lukek, a shareable main quest, to destroy the goblin altar that brings them to day 33 of the forest expedition. The blue-haired girl tells the guy beside her their next goal is to find the centaur tribe. They figure the centaurs are enemies of the goblins, and are likely being enslaved. At the same time, the goblins also gather after sensing something is wrong. During the meeting, one goblin glances over and asks what tribe he's from. Luckily, the protagonist already knows the answer from the intel he stole. He says he's the Haptur tribe, and is on his way to greet his majesty. Sneaking in should have been easy, but then this happened. The goblin keeps staring, then says he knows that place well and can guide him there. Clearly, he's got something else in mind. The system shows his status as friendly, but that's misleading. This goblin wants his body even with a lower level. His total stats are higher, which is why Lin's soft rice talent triggered on him. Lin thinks, how did I end up dealing with a creep like this? Night comes, and the goblins fall asleep. That goblin sneaks toward him, while our boy has already told Little Chirp to stay ready. She's waiting in the dark. He whispers for her to grab the goblin from behind and watch the angle so no blood gets on him. But before Little Chirp can strike, an arrow shoots in from somewhere else and hits the goblin first. The protagonist freezes. Is another player nearby? That shot was powerful. Then a whole volley rains down and he realizes the problem. With the pill active, any player would see him as a goblin too. The one upside is that Little Chirp can move freely. They'll just assume she's another goblin creature, not his partner. He throws up a shield barrier and tells her they need to fall back still. She tries to cut the arrows out of the air, but these arrows home in on him. Curving mid-flight, the shield saves him, but he's stunned. Each arrow is shaving off too. This has to be a skill. Worse, they seem locked onto him. Unless he teleports, he can't shake them. That creates another problem. If he teleports now, his whole infiltration is over. Little Chirp blocks some arrows, but not all of them. He tells her he's about to use the morale boost, but then the arrows suddenly freeze and drop to the ground. He blinks, the arrows stopped. Then he spots someone on the hill. For a second he wonders if it's another cute pet candidate. But she hesitates, then smacks her own head. No, she's a forest goblin enemy. She orders a retreat. She has to kill him herself. Still, something feels wrong. Why can't she do it? The system checks her ordinary female centaur. 13 strength, 7 constitution, 19 agility, 7 spirit. Lin has 10 spirit. She clearly hates forest goblins, but now that hate is clashing with affection. Even so, she's still close to attacking. That rattles him. How much does she hate goblins? If even his talent can't fully stop her from wanting him dead, he quickly tells the system to buy a translation so he can speak with her. Chewing the gum, he calls out, "Sister Sagittarius, please hear me out." She's surprised he knows her language. He claims he's a centaur too. Just cursed by goblins. She pauses. A centaur, even the system mocks him. His story is awful, but somehow she still thinks he might really be one of her people. Lin snaps at the panel to stop judging him. He's just trying to stay alive. Then he spins a sob story about being kidnapped, losing his family to a goblin shaman, and being turned into this form. He pours on the revenge talk, and it works. She walks over to comfort him. "Poor thing, you've suffered so much." He agrees at once, though Little Chirp is clearly not happy watching this. The centaur then notices the giant spider and asks why he's traveling with her. Without missing a beat, he says he saved Little Chirp when she was small, and she's guarded him ever since. That finally relaxes her, and they become fast friends. Though he's the one getting the real advantage, he's excited. Unlike Little Chirp's intense devotion, this centaur is warmer and more tuned into his feelings. He can use that since she hates the forest goblins. He suggests they team up. She takes him to her people, and together they'll attack, but she just hesitates in silence. That reaction tells him something. At last she admits she has no family, friends, or clan left. He already knew goblins use centaurs like horses, but he didn't realize they were almost wiped out. Trying to comfort her, he rises on his toes and pats her head. He tells her that when it's time for revenge, the survivors have to stay strong. Then he gets to the real point. His goblin curse gives him an edge because it lets him sneak into their base. She's not exactly sharp, but she buys it fast. An inside attack could work. He happily tells Chirp to return to the shadows so they can move. Then the centaur stops him. She wants to hide in the shadow too. He says that won't work because Chirp has a contract with him. If she wants to infiltrate, there's another way, though she might not like it. She doesn't even pause. Whatever it takes for revenge, she'll do it. So he shows her the plan. Wear a slave collar and pretend to be his slave. She recoils, worried it'll make her stupid because it's cursed. Linhwa says this one already had the curse removed, so now it's just metal. Apparently that's true. When she touches it, nothing happens. He explains what happened with the centaurs they fought before. Once the collar broke, the curse moved into the centaur. Driving him mad, he had to put him down. Though the centaur thanked him, that's how he ended up with these uncursed collars. His first idea was to gather several centaurs and invade with all of them. But now one will do. The centaur girl, not being the brightest, struggles to pull the collar over her head, but somehow manages it. Before they move out, he asks one last thing. What's her name? She says it's Mia. Since her name is simple, he shortens his own to Lin, so he won't draw attention. Then he tells Mia the plan. When they reach the goblin base, she has to act blank and dumb, like her mind is shut off. She agrees without hesitation her attempt isn't great, she mostly just looks hungry, but ITLL have to do. Now it's day 35 of the expedition. At the goblin base entrance, a guard announces that anyone entering must bring an offering for the great shaman. One poor goblin offers a bone flute, and the guard steals it for himself, saying he needed it at home. Then another goblin steps up with his wife and daughter. He begs for mercy, saying they're poor, and these are their most valuable goods. Just a few small roots. The guard slaps him for daring to offer such trash to the great shaman. He orders the sinner seized for disrespecting the shaman. Surrounded, the goblin pleads for mercy for his wife and daughter. The guard's grin makes his plan obvious. He says he's been needing 2 women at home, and if they agree, hell let the man go. Right then, another goblin rushes over with news. A traveler has arrived with a centaur, and he looks rich standing beside Mia. The protagonist notices her dumb act has gotten a lot better in just one day. Then the guard steps in front of him for a routine inspection, and the system gives bad news. The very first guard he met here is hostile. The Thunder Tribe sees other goblins as weak and dumb, so this guard will squeeze you for everything he can. Watching that family get held back, the protagonist realizes what happened to them, but Mo Xiaobei came prepared. His pill doesn't make him look like some random goblin, it makes him look like that messenger. He tries to explain actually, from. The guard cuts him off. The great shaman ordered that only nobles or those who pay can enter. The protagonist finds that odd. Apparently goblins look down on their own kind too. Then a mission pops up: show your anger. This guard insulted you, so slap him. The harder the hit, the more points you get. Pull your hand back farther for an even bigger reward. The guard looks Mia over and grins. That centaur is nice. Leave her here and you can pass. He keeps going, saying this slave doesn't look built for fighting. She's more like a toy. Let them have some fun with her, and hell let them in. The protagonist thinks these guys are simple, greedy, selfish, and full of themselves. That makes them easy to handle. And this mission might help too. He takes out the bone flute the other goblin brought and says he's an envoy from the lion tribe. The great shaman knows him, so this disrespect won't be forgiven. The guard, either dumb or fearless, snorts. So what? Why should anyone care about a messenger from another tribe? Pay up or lose the slave. Then another goblin kicks him and tells him to shut up. He quickly turns polite, saying the other guard is slow and didn't understand who he was dealing with. He offers to report that an honored messenger has arrived. The system notes that this goblin truly believes the act. He's so greedy and shameless. There's no room left for brains. The protagonist points at the women and says they're from his tribe, so they should be released. The guard agrees at once. He waves them off. Leave already, and don't make him repeat himself. The family thanks the protagonist and hurries away. Still, he's confused. He thought humiliating the goblins counted as a slap in the face. Did the mission really mean an actual slap? Looks like he missed part of it, because it clearly wanted a hard one. He hesitates. Right now he's just posing as a messenger, and slapping a guard could cause a huge mess. So he tells them there's no need to announce him yet. He'll speak with the great shaman later. The guard replies that this idiot won't interfere again. In the end, he decides to skip the slap. The reward is too small for the risk. Smart move. Inside, he studies the Thunder Tribe, the biggest tribe in the Goblin Forest. If he remembers right, it's split into 3 levels. At the bottom are the non-combat goblins, most of them hungry and barely getting by. The second level belongs to the fighters. And at the top live the noble goblins, who enjoy everything without working for it. Other than being green, they're basically the same as everyone else. Stories say the nobles are more connected to the forest and can use special powers. In a place like this, where power decides everything, the strongest shaman rules. At the top sits the great shaman's home. When they reach the stairs, a guard stops him. No one can enter the sacred area, not even a top messenger. Once everyone arrives, the great shaman will hold a meeting. The protagonist decides not to push it. Acting arrogant now could expose him, so he'll look for another way to get close. At least his messenger status gets him a place to stay. He tells Mia she can drop the dumb act now. She answers okay. She's moved after watching him save that family. He tells her their real target is the great shaman, not the worker goblins. To him, she's an innocent centaur, showing pity even to the race that hurt her people. Little Chirp had already started laying traps, but he stops her. He has another plan. Originally he meant to act as a messenger, lure the great shaman over and stab him there. Mia liked that idea, but now it's clearly useless. He's figured out the great shaman doesn't respect messengers at all, so there's no chance hell come to him. Sure, he could ask for a meeting, but it would be packed with guards, and even with both of them fighting, killing the shaman wouldn't be certain, so now he wants to throw the whole place into chaos. First he tells the ladies he's got a new plan. He heads for a huge drum, the great war drum of the goblin forest. If it's struck, everyone gathers by tribe law. It should only sound in emergencies, or by the great shaman's order. He hits it anyway. The guards shout, asking why he's beating the great war drum. More goblins rush in, expecting an attack. The protagonist thinks his disguise as a messenger buys him time. The guards won't move too fast. Some nearby goblins start looking nervous, scared they'll be exposed. Good. He thinks everyone's here now, it's time to start. He raises his arms and announces that today will be different. The goblins look around, confused, wondering where the great shaman is. Then he launches into a speech, saying the ancestors spoke to him in a dream. He claims hell now guide them by the ancestors' will, and bring happiness to all goblins. The guards are shaken. Did he really receive a revelation? He asks if life has been getting harder, more work, less food. Then he turns to the warriors. They shed blood, but never get rewarded for it. The goblins shout yes. He asks if all of that is because of other races. Again, they yell yes, but he says they're wrong. That throws the crowd off. They've always been told other races were to blame. Now they're lost and can't follow what he's saying. The protagonist realizes his speech is failing. Maybe they're just too dumb to get it. He already knows about an item that can help with persuasion, but it costs 70 points and he's short on points right now. It's a high-grade simple megaphone. Speak through it and your negotiating skill rises by 1, while your words hit people harder. Right then, the goblin who triggered the mission comes back. He yells that he checked with the shaman, and the shaman says he doesn't know this guy. The protagonist thinks the timing couldn't be better, and throws a punch even though the goblin is about to fight back with his club. The protagonist whips out the megaphone and shouts for him to stop, calling him a shameless thief. The goblin freezes. He roars that this guard is supposed to protect the tribe, yet only cares about greed and stuffing his own pockets. His behavior is vile and humiliating. Everyone here wants to see his blood spilled. A man like that doesn't deserve to guard this tribe. The megaphone works instantly, and the crowd starts murmuring. They agree this guy really is garbage. He shouldn't be a guard. One goblin says, he only got the job by selling his wife. Another says they should replace him with someone better. The guard loses it and screams that hell kill them all. But before he can move, one of the great shaman's successors arrives. The system points out that this shaman should be strong, but he's drained himself by spending his life drinking and chasing goblin women. He's so pathetic the system almost can't be bothered to insult him. Then sarcastically tells the protagonist to go see for himself. The guard drops to his knees and says he's trying to keep order, but this stranger is causing trouble. The shaman brushes him aside and demands to know who he is, what tribe he came from, and why he's stirring up chaos here. Thinking fast, the protagonist declares that he is a saint, chosen by the great ancestor of the lion tribe, sent to revive the goblin people. The crowd is stunned. Some goblin women even start blushing and swooning. One says she doesn't know why, but he looks like the most handsome goblin in the whole forest. Her husband is completely baffled, keeping the act going. He says the great ancestor gave him an oracle. That oracle said all goblins come from the great gods and deserve fairness, happiness, and freedom. The crowd is shocked, wondering if the ancestors really cared for them like that. The shaman gets furious and yells that he's no shaman, so how dare he claim the ancestor spoke to him. The guards move in, but 3 arrows hit the ground in front of them. His allies fired them. He keeps speaking, saying some goblins twisted the ancestors' words. That lie created injustice, letting some call themselves nobles and exploit everyone else. The shaman orders the guards to stop him, but the protagonist refuses to back down, blaming the nobles for the suffering of the workers. Now the fat goblins living off the system start to panic, while the guards keep shouting for him to be silenced. Before they can reach him, the citizens he stirred up step in front of him, saying anyone who wants him dead will have to kill them first. The whole crowd turns wild and rushes to defend him. The goblin women are completely charmed, even the noble women who would lose the most from all this. One of them cries that the nameless goblin is telling the truth and no one is allowed to hurt him. The male goblins push back, saying he must be a noble too. Only nobles carry the shaman's blood, so they deserve more rights and he should be killed now. The soldiers waver. One tells the captain not to attack yet in case they're making a mistake. Another joins in, saying his own mother is out there in the crowd. The protagonist thinks this is going perfectly. The goblins are so split apart that stirring them up was easy. Still, there's a problem. Only the poor and the women are backing him, while the fighters still haven't picked a side. That's not enough to take down the great shaman. He needs to fire them up even more, so he shouts for everyone in the tribe to listen. Then he says he's willing to give himself up and asks the great shaman to arrest him. The goblin women panic, crying out for their hero not to surrender. He goes on, saying he's exhausted. He came to bring hope and fairness to the tribe, but all he sees now is fighting, so he tells them not to protect him anymore. He doesn't want them suffering because of him. He'll surrender, take the blame, and let himself be locked up if it stops the bloodshed. But he says everyone will remember he gave himself up to fight the injustice. Here the women break down, begging him not to do it. They can't believe a man like this could even exist. He walks up and tells the shaman to take him away. The women warn the shaman that if he harms him, they'll never speak to him again. The shaman doesn't care and says he wants him dead. A soldier quickly warns that killing him now will make the whole crowd explode. He says it's safer to lock him up and wait for the great shaman king to handle it later. Annoyed, the shaman finally agrees and orders them to take him away. The protagonist smirks to himself. This is exactly what he wanted. The story then cuts to Luke, who has just finished off some goblins and is checking a map. It looks like the enemy is getting ready to lay siege to the goblin city. A messenger arrives, saying reinforcements finally showed up, but the group is irritated because their ally came way too late. She says the only thing she found was the ruined centaur city. It had already been wiped out. Luke is at least stunned that an entire race was erased. The soldiers get excited, but he stays cautious. He explains their elite troops can beat goblin warriors, but if the enemy really has a full army, nothing is guaranteed. Stats only rise through training and skills, and without enough levels, better gear can't be used. That keeps people from becoming overpowered too fast. Since the centaurs won't be helping, they need a new plan, so he says they'll pool their points again and give the best gear to the strongest fighters, though he's not sure everyone will agree this time. On day 36 of the exploration, the story returns to the protagonist's cell. The shaman comes in and orders the guard to stay at the door and let no goblin inside, no matter who it is. The guard agrees, and the shaman steps in to face the prisoner. The protagonist is surprised he actually came. The shaman leans in and says the great shaman has approved his execution. Once their enemies are dealt with, he won't kill him yet, but he does plan to torture him first. The protagonist grins and says the shaman is being very helpful. Confused and furious, the shaman demands to know what he means and threatens to crush his throat before he can move. The protagonist calls for Little Chirp, and the spider appears behind the shaman. He freezes in shock. In an instant, the spider's blade is at his throat. Sweat pours down his face. He's stunned that he's still alive. Then he begs for mercy, offering blessings and treasure. The protagonist shuts him up by webbing his mouth. He says he won't kill him because he needs a body double. If the goblin jailed for justice suddenly escapes, it would look like an admission of guilt. Then he tells Chirp to tie him up. After that, he turns to Mia. He tells her bow is in the next room and sends her to get it. She nods and leaves. Of course, he doesn't want her watching him use the pills. Then he faces the shaman again. He says all goblins look the same to him anyway, so hell just beat this one until nobody can tell who he is. Outside, the guards hear the noise. They assume the shaman is just beating the prisoner too hard and say that's what he gets for causing so much trouble. Inside, the protagonist takes everything the shaman has, jams a shoe into his mouth and smiles. Now no one will know who he is. The real shaman panics, thinking they'll notice once he doesn't come back. The protagonist glances over and says he almost forgot. He wants to crush that last bit of hope too. He pulls out a pill, and the shaman stares in fear, not knowing what he's about to do. Then the protagonist takes the pill and transforms. The shaman is horrified, realizing for a split second that this prisoner is an enemy of their race. The protagonist has become the shaman. The real one starts breaking down, convinced this has to be a nightmare. Hell wake from satisfied. The protagonist notes that the guy has completely lost it. Then he checks one of the items he took, and remembers it should raise agility. Since the shaman used it, there probably isn't a curse on it, so he decides to test it. After opening his status, he sees his agility didn't change. At least his mental stat is almost 11. Then an idea hits him. He turns to Chirpazina and says he wants to try something, calling her big sister. He offers the item as a gift since it doesn't work for him. He figures he can at least make her like him more. To his surprise, it actually works on her. That means these items can only be used by monsters. The system explains that people rely on gear, while monsters use magic items instead. But because he gave it to her like an accessory, she got attached to it, so taking it back would be a bad idea. In short, he lost it. Still, he decides it's worth it since her agility was already high, and one more point helps a lot. The shop has plenty of gear for warriors, but none of it works for monsters, so if monster items work like this, boosting his monster ally is way better than boosting himself. Now she's thrilled. She's not just faster, she can also spin webs quicker. She slips back into the shadows, and Mia returns with her bow. But she stops and asks who he is. He calmly says it's him, Lin, and that the curse only changed how he looks. Mia still asks if it's really him, calling it a terrible curse, but she's gullible enough to accept it. He tells her to hurry. They need to move. He goes outside and tells the guards he already dealt with the prisoner, so no one is allowed inside. When a guard asks why he's taking the centaur, he says the prisoner offered her as a gift to win favor with that. He walks out of the prison and heads straight to the shaman's main area with this disguise. He thinks he might be able to profit big, but the second he sees the great shaman, he knows he's in trouble. The guy's stats are insane: 21 strength, 23 constitution, 20 agility, and 12 spirit. Even the system warns him that this tribe's great shaman is the real deal, and taking him down will need a perfect strike. He only came to report on the prisoner, so now he has to leave and figure out a new way to destroy this place. Then he spots 2 young captives tied to a pillar. One boy complains that they never should have gone so deep into the forest, while the other snaps that it's his fault for running and ruining their formation. The goblins talk around them, but the boys can't understand a word. One goblin asks what happened, and another explains they found these 2-legged creatures wandering near the tribe like spies. The protagonist wonders if the other warriors have also been watching the Thunder tribe. One captive quickly tries to bargain, saying the shaman looks reasonable. He begs to be spared and offers to show where the other warriors are. His companion is furious that he'd betray everyone, but he fires back that he isn't dying for someone who only gave him a few points. The protagonist realizes Lucas has already started acting, and is even sharing strength with some people, which normally isn't like him at all. Laura calls him an idiot and says leading the goblins there could get the warriors killed and ruin the mission. The other boy doesn't care. The protagonist notes they already know about the mission, and Luca must have needed more fighters if he was handing out points. Laura keeps begging the shaman to spare him. The protagonist studies them, and decides he can use these 2 losers. He tells a goblin he's taking them, and the goblin agrees, saying he'll surely find a good use for them. Watching this, Mia thinks he's rescuing more captives and decides he's kind. He ignores that and turns back to business, asking a goblin about the nameless god. He asks what should be done with the goblin who stirred up all this chaos. The goblin says that Scum should confess his sins before the great shaman, but the system notes that, despite sounding respectful, he's unhappy with the tribe's unfairness, and was deeply shaken by the nameless god's speech that night. Inside a tent with Mia on watch, the protagonist speaks to the captives. He tells them not to be afraid. He only arrested the nameless god because the great shaman would have been furious otherwise. One goblin quickly agrees and says he understands. If he's acting on the nameless god's behalf, then it must be for everyone's good, right? He realizes he'll need to push a little more to win them over. Good thing he came ready. He takes out the simple high-quality loudspeaker and starts talking. This sacred weapon came from the Nameless One. Whenever I see it, I remember his noble sacrifice. When I look at this village, I see common goblins working themselves to the bone, while the nobles enjoy an easy life. It breaks my heart. He hides the loudspeaker as best he can so no one gets suspicious, but he's still using it. One of the warriors asks if he really agrees with the Nameless One. The system jokes that his great acting is really just the speaker making this goblin think he's a comrade the soldier size. Even if the stats are bad, what can he do? The Nameless One rebelled and got locked up for corruption. No one can go against the great shaman, and a warrior like him is powerless. They all look discouraged, but Hao tells them not to give up yet. As long as hope remains, it's not over. Curious, the goblins listen as he says he once visited the Nameless One in prison, and there he heard a story. He asks them to picture a huge cursed circle that's hard to break. Inside it are several goblins, slowly having their life drained away there under a sleep spell, so they won't feel anything even if they die. Then another goblin shows up outside the circle and shouts that they're about to be sacrificed. His yelling might wake some of them, but waking up means they'll suffer inside that circle. So what would they do in that situation? The soldier thinks it over. Maybe he'd wake them up anyway, but if they died in pain, that would be awful. He admits he wouldn't know what to choose. How asks if they know what that goblin outside the circle did. He ran into the flames himself, woke them one by one, got hurt in the process, and together they broke the cursed circle. The goblins are stunned. That sounds insane, and would it even work? He says yes, the Nameless One told him this story himself, and if they stand together they can fight back too. Then he reveals the point. The Nameless One was that goblin who jumped into the circle. He's already awakened a few people. Now the question is whether they'll follow his path. The group answers at once they'll follow him. Just like that, the sly devil pushes the rebellion even further. He grabs a goblin's hand and says they're equals now. There's no need to call him Great Shaman. Moved by that, the goblin agrees. From there, the revolt spreads through the warriors, and a new faith called Davarishi starts to form, built on goblin unity. Now everyone waits for the uprising to begin. As Hao heads out with Mia, that's when several goblin women come up to him. They're furious, accusing him of doing something terrible by imprisoning the Nameless One. The protagonist is caught off guard and thinks this is getting messy. He tries to explain, but before he can, another goblin jumps in to defend him. It turns into a contest of who can talk smoother, and even the system notes she's backing him because she fell for his sweet words. Still, she clearly misses the other smooth talker. He locked up. The whole thing becomes a confusing mess. He finally tells them to calm down. They should settle this somewhere else. Privately, he's pleased. Had been wanting a chance to talk to the goblin women of the forest, and with his usual silver tongue, he soon convinces them he had no choice but to imprison that guy. Now they're in tears, saying they had no idea things were so hard for him, or that he suffered so much just to protect the Nameless One. He bows his head and says there's only one way to save him. They ask what that way is. He explains why the Great Shaman ordered the Nameless One imprisoned. The nobles ruined his name, so if they want to save him, they have to make the Great Shaman see that the Nameless One was truly a good person. One of the women agrees the Great Shaman made a mistake. Another asks how they can tell him that he's innocent. Hao pulls out the loudspeaker and tells them not to worry. If it comes to that, he'll speak to the nobles himself. He declares that he inherited the sacred weapon of the Nameless One, and hell rescue him. That fires the goblin women up completely. After winning them over, he rushes to the nobles, not to persuade them, but to report everything. One noble is shocked that someone is trying to ruin the Great Shaman's reputation. Hao confirms it and says they can trust him. The noble thanks him, glad they can prepare to crush the troublemakers. Day 39 arrives, and the goblin women launch the revolution. They shout that the Great Shaman was deceived, and the whole tribe deserves justice. Meanwhile, MC speaks with a soldier in hiding. The soldier asks if they really shouldn't join in yet. The soldier asks if they really shouldn't join in yet. MC tells him to stay calm. If they show up armed now, the nobles will think they came to start a fight. The goal is to unite people, not split them further. The goblin is impressed by how smart he is, but then the nobles show up, furious that anyone dared make a move without informing the shaman. They call it a crime, and order everyone arrested. The women are confused. They thought the shaman was supposed to speak with the nobles, but the nobles are already planning to seize the leaders of the movement and force the rest to surrender. Even some goblin nobles get detained, shouting that they carry ancestral blood and can't be treated like this. Hao watches and decides the time has come. He brings in his forces. The goblin women light up when they see him. One noble stares in confusion, asking if he wasn't the one who warned them. Hao cuts him off, acting shocked that they came here to arrest their own people. The noble tries to defend himself and starts to explain to everyone, but the protagonist orders Mia to act, and she fires, dropping the noble with one arrow. That sets the rebellion off. MC declares that they tried to reason with their fellow tribesmen, but no one listened, so now they'll fight and free the Nameless One. He looks around and realizes the revolution is fully underway. From here on, everything depends on how the Great Shaman responds. Leading the crowd, he shouts for them to free the Nameless One. The goblin women throw themselves into the revolt, but an arrow suddenly lands right in front of Hao, along with a warning to stop. One more step and they'll be killed without mercy. The women recognize the speaker as the tribe's strongest warrior, but he doesn't care. As long as the goblins turn on each other, that works for him, so he rallies the crowd, saying that even if the great cavalry stands against them, those who want to free the Nameless One will never surrender. The goblin women raise their weapons, and the revolution is on the edge of exploding. At the same time, the great shaman is praying. When a subordinate rushes in, he reports that the hare is leading troops their way, and even the officials can barely hold them back. The great shaman is stunned. The hare was supposed to be trustworthy. So how could this happen? He even asks if the report is a lie, but the subordinate swears it isn't. Still calm, the tribe leader tells him to answer something first. Even with a revolt going on, why can't they suppress it? The goblin explains that it's not just civilians anymore, some warriors and even nobles have joined in. Now angry, the leader demands to know how an outsider's words swayed so many. He hands over an ancestral totem and gives an order: take the totem and get things under control. Preserve as much as possible, and the totem bearer answers at once. Perfect great shaman, he already knows what to do. But hidden nearby, Lukov's group is watching the whole tribe. One of them excitedly tells Captain Lu that the goblins are falling into civil war, which makes this the perfect chance to strike. Below them, goblins and centaurs are already clashing. The armies are trying to stop the chaos, and Hao is surprised. He expected to exploit the main army's weakness and finish them off, but his own side seems to be winning instead. Then all at once, everything stops. The protagonist wonders why no one is moving. The goblin carrying the totem has arrived. He announces that he bears the totem of the great ancestors and will deliver an oracle. The system warns that this guy hates the hare and thinks Hao is unworthy of the great shaman's favor. That immediately shocks MC. He realizes the body he took over is hated by this guy. And worse, the man is carrying serious gear. The crowd starts reacting well to the totem, which is bad news. He needs them angry. Then the totem bearer speaks, accusing them all of causing trouble for the great shaman. He says the great shaman knows the truth and wants everyone to go home, rest and accept forgiveness. The goblins, simple as ever, eat it right up and revere the totem bearer. The protagonist knows it's hard to beat the respect they have for their leader. Arguing now could ruin everything, so he switches tactics. He says there's no need to rush. The great shaman is right, and they should all celebrate together. Hell, bring out the Nameless One, so everyone can speak with him. The totem bearer hesitates. But Hao presses on. Everything is settled now, and the great shaman promised forgiveness. Was he really going to question that? Not wanting to stir things up more, the totem bearer gives in and agrees to go get him. As they walk down the corridor, the shaman admits he used to think MC only cared about pleasure and had no ambition. Today changed, that he finds the sudden kindness suspicious. Then the shaman beside him adds that looks like Hao saw the Nameless One stir up a little rebellion and decided to use it for himself. He even praises it as a great plan, especially once he got the totem. Then comes the warning. Leave the Thunder Tribe now, before he decides not to let the protagonist go at all. Annoyed, MC says the man sure loves giving advice, so now it's his turn. Without warning, he sends his spider companion at the shaman. The spider gets ready to eat the item, but Hao stops her. He has another use for it. Outside, the goblins wait eagerly for him to return. One goblin spotted him first and yelled, "He's back." But the protagonist came out carrying the beat-up goblin from earlier and shouted, "The Nameless One was murdered by the shaman. This tribe executed him for nothing." Just like that, he found a new way to fire up the rebellion. And the crowd froze in shock. The guards pushed back right away. "That's impossible. You were the only one who questioned him, and where's the totem bearer? Why isn't he with you?" He answered that the shaman never planned to spare the Nameless One. He only wanted to cover it up. Then he pulled out the megaphone and cried, "I swear on this sacrifice, will avenge the Nameless One and tear down the system." He threw up his arms and the goblins were completely fired up. Now blinded by rage, they ignored every excuse and rushed forward screaming, "Kill those bugs. Tear this place down. This tribe is unjust." The soldiers were swarmed and panicked. "What are you doing?" The protagonist smirked. Chaos was exactly what he needed. That was the moment the rebellion truly caught fire. The civilian goblins were far weaker than the armed riders, but this fight was different. They were charging in for freedom. Even with arrows and spears hitting them, they kept pushing until they reached the army guarding the great shaman. A noble shouted for them to stop, but the soldiers hesitated. The protagonist kept pushing them on. Ahead of us is the great shaman, and that's where our awakening begins. While the battle raged, he focused on his real goal: destroy the portal, bringing in goblins and finish the main mission. He waited for a chance to slip up the stairs to the temple. A goblin struck one of the guards, but the weapon bent. The guard had used an elite defense skill that made normal attacks useless. Then another shaman stepped in and offered the protagonist one last chance to surrender. Saying he could still be forgiven, he asked what would happen to his comrades if he gave up. The shaman sneered. Was he really trying to bargain? Those rebels would be executed one by one. So he was told to surrender while that mercy still lasted. The system cut in. He wasn't offering mercy at all. He was waiting for the right moment to kill you. One goblin begged, "Sir, please surrender. Even if we die, you have to live." The shaman mocked him. "Why not give up before you're buried with these idiots?" But the protagonist answered with a speech. "To you, they're just rebels, ants under your feet with no will of their own. To me, they're comrades, brothers in arms. We share the same dream, and we swore to wipe out the injustice in this tribe. Today, one side dies. There is no third choice." The goblins were deeply moved and saw just how blind the shaman really was. Then a goblin came running in, shouting that something terrible had happened. The protagonist watched as the report came out. A bunch of hairless, two-legged creatures were attacking, and an army was already at the entrance. Everyone else was stunned. "Impossible, we already scouted them. They were weak, any one of us could beat them." But the messenger said the general's group had already been crushed. These bipeds were different this time. They had armor, and their commander seemed to be protected by some strange barrier. The goblins couldn't even scratch them. That news shook everyone. The protagonist thought, so the big enemy they mean is me, the one who's been wiping them out. Looks like Lucas showed up to make things even messier. How nice of him. The goblin begged for reinforcements at once, warning that if they didn't stop the invasion, they'd all be slaughtered. With a nasty plan in mind, the protagonist stepped up. "I'll lead anyone willing to follow me and stop them. We can settle this afterward." His idea was obvious: pull the army away and leave the shaman exposed. The shaman glared, realizing this bastard had started a rebellion and now wanted to seize command too. Still, the soldiers were worried. However bad the rebellion was, an invasion by another race was an even bigger threat. The shaman thought, "I'll use this chance to kill him." Out loud, though, he announced that the protagonist was forgiven for now and that stopping the invaders came first. He even made a new rule: any rebel who killed one of the invaders would be made a noble. The protagonist saw that the goblins were immediately tempted. It was a smart move. Some of the shaman's loyal followers didn't like it, but he quickly added that the rule came with a condition. Then he pointed at the protagonist. "For this rule to stand, you must face me in A and repay your crimes." His supporters understood right away. He had no real plan to reward anyone with noble status. He just wanted the protagonist in a duel, where killing him would make crushing the rest easy. The protagonist realized the shaman was judging him by the weak body he had taken over, which was why he sounded so confident. He looked around at the crowd. Now that becoming a noble was on the table, they were wavering. The system-side greed had taken over. They'd rather become the new oppressors than stay the oppressed. They all wanted him to accept, but the protagonist actually liked it. He had been looking for a way to face the shaman anyway, so he agreed to the challenge. The ones loyal to him were shocked. "No, you can't," the girl cried. "He knows you're weak in a fight. This duel is just a trap to kill you." But the protagonist calmly answered that stopping the invaders had to come first. "If I refuse this duel, the tribe will be destroyed. Sadly, this is the only way. Never forget, we fight to end inequality here. If my death can bring safety and justice, then I'll die with no regrets." Then he turned to his followers of Davros. "Don't fear my loss, just hold on to your ideals, and remember what we're fighting for." Even the soldiers who hated him were moved. One of them even thought him his enemy, "But I still respect him." And with that, the great duel was decided. Meanwhile, at the battlefield, goblin bodies were already piled across the ground. A centaur tried to charge in, but dropped into a trap laid by that soldier who loved fighting. He laughed, bragging about how great his traps were. A beautiful waifu snapped at him to stop talking and finish the job. All right. The goblin could only think, how did things turn out like this? He had felt powerful not long ago, and now he was facing someone with a giant sword. When the blade came down, there was no mercy in it. It cut straight through him, and Lucky kept directing the advance at the same time. The protagonist and his group headed for the sacred duel hall in goblin culture. Where slavery is normal, it's common to duel with the slave beside you. The sacred duel is said to be watched by the great ancestors, so no goblin but the fighters can see what happens inside. The shaman mocked him, saying his way of starting a rebellion to grab power was pretty unique. The protagonist figured the guy just wanted to talk before the fight. Then he spoke to the centaur, who had been acting like a slave. You don't need to pretend anymore, take this and make yourself stronger. The shaman stared, confused. Why give that to her? A centaur slave couldn't use abilities. Was he that desperate? Before he could finish, a storm of arrows flew at him. The shaman was stunned. How was she using a centaur ability? Was his centaur actually aware? The protagonist ignored him. Sister Mia, no need to hold back. Use the special arrows we prepared. Mia fired a full volley of curving arrows, and one had a special tip. The shaman's centaur tried to evade, but the arrows chased the target. 2 arrows slammed into each other in midair and exploded. The protagonist chuckled. Those explosive arrows from his assistant were worth it. Now more careful, the shaman admitted he had underestimated them. The system warned that the surprise attack worked, but the ancestors' protection had blocked serious damage. He'd be careful now, that trick wouldn't work twice. Power started pouring off the shaman as he spoke. He never expected that lazy, pleasure-loving act was hiding someone so ambitious and greedy. The system added that with his barrier up, another explosive arrow would only drain about 25 of the shield. The shaman scoffed, asking if these secret tricks were really enough to beat him, then used battle memory shield ready. The protagonist knew this fight wouldn't be easy, and the system warned that the shaman was storing power. He told Mia to aim at the shaman's centaur. She hesitated, not wanting to hurt an ally. He reminded her that revenge comes with sacrifice. Now that she knew he was one of her own race, she also knew he was still their enemy. With no other choice, Mia fired 2 more explosive arrows. The centaur answered with arrows of his own. Their shots curved through the air and crashed together in blasts. The problem was that the shaman centaur could bend arrows too. Then the system warned the shaman had charged 50 of his power. The protagonist ran to Mia. Sister Mia, let's use plan B. She lifted him up, showing surprising speed and strength. The shaman laughed, asking if riding on her was supposed to change anything, but Mia was already moving. She carried the protagonist in her arms as she rushed forward. The shaman watched in surprise as she shielded him with her own defense. Then the protagonist told her to throw him at the shaman, and she did it perfectly. He flew through the air, while Mia launched a wave of curved explosive arrows. The shaman barely made it through the blast and came out of the smoke thinking he had survived and that his secret skill was almost ready. But something moved inside the smoke. The little chirp caught off guard. The shaman was struck by the centaur. Even so, the protagonist had expected him to block it even with a surprise hit. Her stats were still lower than his. The shaman boasted that his body had been strengthened by secret arts, so a weak attack like that could never hurt him. Then he declared the time had come. Come forte, lightning shaman's spiritual summon. The chirp was blasted away, but she quickly shot a web to the wall and pulled herself back up. The shaman sneered, too late, monster. Now he had the ancestors' protection, and the system warned that the grand summoning had started. He was already stronger than a level 2 in close combat, and now he could fire unpredictable long-range attacks too. The chirp looked to the every boss has a strength and a weak spot. I just need to find his. If I do, I can win without paying too much. And if not, I'll have to improvise. Big guy, it's too late for regrets. I'm tearing you apart first. I'll deal with the one who aimed a weapon at me. He fires at little chirp, and she barely slips past it. She catches the next hit with her arm. Fast, but the force still throws her back. She really can't match him head on. The monster keeps firing spirit attacks, and all she can do is stay alive. At the same time, the centaur girl takes a hit to the legs and drops, nearly dead, but our guy still manages to save the bigger one. He pulls her back. And then the system gives him a clue. This form is crazy strong, but it won't last forever. Once it ends, he'll be weakened. The protagonist calls out, "Great shaman, did you notice something? Even with your soul power, and the ancestors behind you, neither I nor my monsters gave up." The shaman sneers, "So what, you want me to think you're a hero?" He answers, "No, I'm saying I already knew how your power works." The shaman snaps back, "That's impossible. Everyone who's seen this is dead." The protagonist just smirks behind the goblin. Little Chirp creeps in. Glowing purple, even the goblin is shocked. A monster with a death skill. She raises her weapon and calls on the mercy of the goddess of desire. The big goblin is startled, but he still thinks blocking it is enough. He brings up his spirit defense and stops her strike. The shaman boasts that the great ancestors' protection can't be broken. The protagonist fires back. The calmer you get, the easier you are to kill. Little Chirp puts all her strength and speed into that blow. From his testing, the shaman can only barely stop it if he uses everything. Then he calls out, "All right, sister, raise morale. One more point in strength and one more in agility." The shaman panics. Can he even block this? Then an explosion goes off, fire spreads, glitter falls, and Chirp unleashes her forest skill too. That finishes him. She drops from exhaustion. The system warns that the spider girl used her boss skill, leaving her badly weakened. Though she's still stronger than him, the protagonist groans at the system, then walks over to what's left of the goblin. He saw her split the guy in half, so why are there pieces everywhere? He must have had gear that toughened his body. Little Chirp walks over, takes the teeth he had and gives them to the protagonist. Another pendant. Do all goblins wear these things? Then she gives him a hungry look, like she wants it for herself. He asks if she does, and her face makes the answer obvious. She doesn't even need to ask, of course she gets the best gear. She's thrilled. The system says that because she's weakened, she only has 10 agility right now. It doesn't look like much changed, but the system explains her body already absorbed part of the item's power, giving her growth and evolution normal spiders don't get. Basically, he got lucky. The downside is that this power is hidden, marked only as 20, and the protagonist is completely confused by that still. If the system says it's good, he lets it go and calls over the little centaur, but when she turns back, she's grieving the friend who got crushed. She says the goblin is dead, and begs him to save him before it's too late. The protagonist sadly realizes the centaur still hasn't truly come back to his senses. What happened was battle memory, it didn't break the curse. He apologizes and says that after using the collar, there's no saving him. She cries while he's already wondering if bringing her into another fight is worth it. Since both of them can still battle, he says, "Sister Mia, there's something more important now. We have to destroy the altar in the center of the temple. As long as it stands, goblins will keep invading, and centaurs will keep dying. That lights a fire in her, and she says she understands it's their duty to help." He keeps watching her, judging if she's worth making a contract with. She's emotional, but when it matters, she moves. Outside, some goblins from the army are talking. They say the warriors below are all fired up and probably want return. Their troops will move in and wipe out those hairless. Then someone points out that goblins are hairless, and two-legged too. The general calls them idiots, while the little noble says it's their choice. Outside, the protagonist walks on with his two companions. They already got past the group outside. He didn't expect guards to still be posted at the temple during a war, so this place must be important. Meanwhile, for the army, Luca gives a speech. They found the source of the goblins' creation. If they break the enemy force blocking the way, they can finish the mission from the ancient gods and claim victory. They've all tasted the pain and glory of war, and this battlefield is nothing new to humans now with their new gear. Luca urges them toward the enemy base. The guy with glasses notices the troops are getting stronger from the speech. Apparently, that little trumpet really works. Then he points out the goblins are already charging. This is the right time and place. They have to win. Everyone shouts back and rushes forward. While the goblins charge like mad, the protagonist stays calm with his two fighters and shield. He heads for the altar. No traps. It seems just break it. Then he suddenly freezes when he sees a purple energy pouring over the altar. It fires a bolt of lightning into the sky, and that strikes the goblins on the battlefield. Right away, they get a buff from the elders, and the battle starts turning in their favor. Luca sees that if he waits, he'll lose more men, so he hands command to someone else and charges into the front lines himself. Leaping ahead, he shouts, "Brothers, follow me." Back at the altar, the protagonist watches that strange aura. He doesn't know what it is, but it's clearly bad news, so he decides to rush in and smash the altar fast. The spider girl is already there, slashing at it. Cracks spread across the altar, but the aura is dangerous, and neither the centaur nor the spider has a shield. Then he notices something odd. They aren't being hurt, they're being powered up. The system warns that this energy can speed up a creature's growth. but they shouldn't take in too much. The centaur asks if they should help Spider Sister, but he says no, even her injuries are healing, and she's getting stronger. If that's true, then there's no need to avoid the energy. Still, he notices Mia is only being healed, not strengthened. Little Chirp, on the other hand, looks like she loves it. She's getting close. The system speaks again. She can absorb traits from the X breath. Her stats are rising, but again, not too far. The protagonist wonders what this X thing even is. It came up before with the collar too. Then the mark on his hand turns red, and he realizes something's wrong. She's taking in too much and can't handle it. Her strength jumps from 13 to 15, and agility from 18 to 21. The system warns that the dark energy is forcing her past her limit. If she doesn't reach level 2 or stop absorbing it, she'll explode. He yells for her to destroy the altar now so they can get out. She hits it with everything she has, but it still doesn't break. He tells the centaur to fire arrows too, but Mia is too worn out to react. Frustrated, the Spider Girl gathers what's left of her strength and cuts the altar in half, making it explode. On the battlefield, the goblin's aura vanishes, and now Lukik pushes forward. Glowing with power, he punches a goblin and sends it flying, and the enemy starts fleeing. Later, Luck checks the mission. Clearing the goblin forest is done, but destroying the altar still shows 0 of 1. Then, to his shock, it suddenly updates as completed. He looks at his men and says, "Brothers, we finished the first part. Now come with me to the tribe and destroy that altar. The rewards will be ours." Meanwhile, the protagonist is taking it easy beside his big spider, who sadly lost her power up the moment the altar was destroyed, right when she was getting really strong. His own mission now shows 1 of 1 for both goals. The system tells him rewards will be counted after everything ends. Seeing the tribe wiped out, he figures Lucca and his unit already crushed the goblins, which means he needs to leave fast because those guys are already coming up the stairs. Lucca, eyes shining, finally says he's come too far, spent too many points, and risked too much not to get the best reward from this mission. But as he climbs, a message appears. The main mission has been completed, and personal contribution will be calculated soon. Lucca's face drops. What? He hasn't even reached the altar yet. He looks back, thinking someone used the battle with the goblins as cover to destroy it. At first he suspects someone from his own side, but everyone looks just as confused. Then the system tells Lucca he ranks 2nd, and his rewards will now be given out. He's furious. He worked for days to come in first, and whoever stole that reward is going to pay. Now imagine if the protagonist's name appears on the list. His personal contribution ranks 1st. Arms crossed, he sees the system was right, while the hungry Spider Girl keeps staring at the centaur's necklace. Hold on. Glutton, his reward is a red Agatha treasure chest. The highest rank possible. Are the ancient gods really this generous? The spider can see the item, but the centaur can't, probably because she doesn't have a contract. The system says mission rewards have no limits, so he can open the chest whenever he wants. A red chest gives a 90 chance for a gold item, and 10 for a red one. He grins. If a blue chest gave him a purple item, what could a red chest give? There was no reason to wait, so he opened it right away. Golden light burst out. Was it gold or red? The chest popped open, and a small item appeared. It was a flying cloud. It could cross mountains, but at level 1, it could only hover near the ground. He was thrilled. This was great. Now he wouldn't need the Spider Girl. Every time he had to run when he activated it, the cloud floated a little above the ground. The centaur reacted in surprise and said something he couldn't understand. Then he remembered it had been a while since he took the pill, so its effect must have worn off. She was totally confused. A second ago he looked like a goblin, and now he was human. The system points out that even after seeing the change, she still isn't afraid of him. She's really that innocent. He takes another pill so they can talk, figuring he avenged her tribe and helped her get what she wanted. Even if she learns he lied, she probably won't be too upset. He tells her he's fine, and that the curse must have changed again. This time for the better. She actually seems to believe him, and the system calls her hopelessly gullible. Then she points at the cloud and asks what it is. Of course he lies again and says that after they wiped out the tribe, the ancient centaurs gave him a vision and gifted him the cloud. She asks where those ancient centaurs are. He quickly brushes it off, saying it was only in his head. That makes her a little sad. She wanted a message from them too, feeling a bit bad. He pats her head watching all this. He starts thinking a contract with her might be useful. The problem is his level is still too low. Another issue is that her role would overlap with Little Chirp's, so someone more balanced might be better right then. Little Chirp shows up acting proud, and he calms her down, promising there'll be more rewards later. She happily accepts that and enjoys the attention. Now he has to figure out what to do with the centaur. She has no tribe left, but he still can't make a contract with her. She looks at him like some mighty hero for saving everyone. When really he's the weakest one there, then a blue aura starts glowing around her, and the true spirit of the ancient centaurs appears. It tells its descendant, who carries the king's blood, that her wish to protect the clan has awakened it. If she truly wants to save her people, she must go in the direction it's showing her. There, Shell return to their homeland and face the trial to inherit the title of Centaur King. It adds that Shell find the lost treasure and gain a power, then vanishes before finishing. He's stunned the centaur girl has royal blood if she clears the test. Shell become the ruler of the centaurs. That instantly excites him. He loves the idea of a stronger ally. She, on the other hand, is still unsure and timid. Later, she explains the history of the Centaur King and their old kingdom. Back then, centaurs ruled the land, expanded their territory, and built a rich, powerful nation. Even with a king, they valued skill over blood. Anyone who wanted power had to pass trials. That changed after the first king disappeared. The centaurs began fighting each other, and around that same time, the goblins arrived. He listens with real interest, but she lowers her head and looks discouraged. She says the test is too hard and she can't pass it, still believing he's a centaur. She tells Lin to take the test instead. Since he beat the great shaman, he puts a hand on her shoulder and reminds her the Centaur King chose her. He says he can't go against that will, and defeating the shaman was only possible because of her help. She's more than qualified. Then he urges her to go become the ruler of the centaurs, promising to support her. Of course, he's also thinking that once she becomes king, making a contract will be perfect. While Little Chirp watches, the centaur feels happy and a little shy as he explains he can't stay with her yet. Her trial will take time, and he still doesn't have the level needed for a contract. Still, he doesn't want to send her off empty-handed. So he tells her to wait there and goes to get something. At the same time, Luke and his group finally reach the altar and find it already destroyed. The mission updates. For the next 24 hours, killing goblins will give extra points. Luke gives a short speech to fire everyone up and send them after goblins. Clearly, he also wants to use this to figure out who destroyed the altar. Diacles is impressed by the plan. He doesn't know how Luke will do it, but he wants to see how it plays out. Meanwhile, the little centaur waits nervously for him to return, pacing around and imagining her warrior. Maybe this won't work, but maybe it's worth a try. She thinks in her daydream. The warrior vows to always be her most loyal sword, my queen. Poor girl. She can't even hold a twig. She keeps fantasizing that anyone who wants to touch her queen would have to get through her first. Then he finally comes back. The protagonist returns with some enslaved centaurs. Now that the curse is gone, they aren't violent anymore, but their minds are gone too. All they can do is hunt and eat. Even so, he says they're still her people, and keeping them with her could help rebuild the Centaur Kingdom. Then he pulls something out and says he has one more gift. It's a communicator so she can contact him later. She lights up immediately. He explains that if she ever runs into trouble, she just has to hold it and say his name and he'll hear her. But it only works a limited number of times, so she should save it for emergencies. It was a white-grade communicator that could reach him 10 times. He thinks to himself that sadly, this was the best he could afford, and now his points were gone again. She takes it gratefully and hugs it to her chest, then throws her arms around him. After that they say goodbye, and as always, someone else gets jealous. The story cuts back to Luck Egg's team handling the new mission. Everyone who joined got 50 points, and now the rankings are about to be revealed. Inside a tent, Luck Egg and the others talk about how all their teammates seem accounted for. So Luck Egg suggests the person who killed the boss and destroyed the altar might not be one of them. That makes the group nervous, especially since the protagonist could be the one. Cunning as ever, Luck Egg says he'll handle finding that person himself. He claims it's too risky for anyone else since whoever beat the boss must be strong. Then the guy with glasses points to a suspect. He says to check the rankings. Someone had 0 points before, then suddenly jumped up. That person is likely their target. Then the next chapter starts with a goblin running up the stairs shouting for the shaman. The Thunder tribe was attacked, but when he looks around, the great shaman is nowhere to be seen. Instead, a spear and arrow are stuck in the wall behind him. The shaman had already been killed. A young man steps out of the shadows, relieved that he finally reached him. His mission was to kill 10 goblin leaders and earn the Goblin Leader Assassin achievement. The reward was a purple Agatha chest. The first phase of the event was paused, and points were about to be announced. He checks first place and wonders if he pushed too hard and is about to attract trouble. Luckily, he can lower his presence, so almost nothing notices him. That's how he got through the spider dungeon stunt. He remembers opening a chest and spotting a little girl nearby, then getting a reward no one was supposed to have. A class change to user of the 5 elements. Even goblins could barely sense him, and with his earth power, he could move in and out without leaving traces. Now that he's in first, he decides hiding isn't worth it anymore. He might as well enjoy the lead. Back with the guy in glasses, he's still talking about the mystery player who suddenly jumped to the top of the rankings. He asks if anyone has seen that person, or if they're hiding on purpose. The others all say they have no idea who it is, but the blue-haired girl suggests it might just be someone who got lucky with a great mission. Not the person who destroyed the altar. The mood in the group gets tense. They clearly aren't working well together. Luke mentions the blue-haired girl used to be a cop, so maybe she can break it down. She reluctantly agrees and says that from looking at the bodies, the victims were killed by arrows and blade strikes, so the attacker uses those weapons. Since the village was attacked around the same time, whoever did this had to be there too. So the culprit must be. Then we cut back to the protagonist, now dressed in spider-themed gear because he had to change clothes after finishing the mission. He returned to the shop to see if anything good had shown up, even though he had no points left. Sadly, there was nothing useful. As he walks out, he notices a crowd gathered around a notice. People around the notice were shocked. Who was this guy to get a 400-point reward? Curious, the protagonist went over to read it. The notice said one warrior had taken down the goblin leader alone and saved their army from major losses. To thank him, they wanted help finding that warrior, and whoever did would get 400 points. He liked the reward, but not enough to expose himself. Then he noticed the sketch didn't really look like him, so he relaxed and turned to leave. Right then someone tapped his shoulder. It was Lynn. The charm effect kicked in, and the system noted that while she seemed glad to see him, she was hiding another feeling underneath. He really needed to stop checking her status every time. Still, women were hard to read, so he relied on the system, and now he wanted to know what that other emotion was. Trying to sound normal, he asked how she'd been. Lynn said she was fine, then pointed out that he looked troubled, and asked what he found. He brushed it off, but she didn't let it go. If something was wrong, Big Sis could help. That threw him off. Maybe it was because they hadn't met in a while, but she felt much more serious now. He said he was okay, and asked how she was doing instead. She answered that she was fine, and told him not to worry, but she clearly wasn't. That made him even more uneasy. Then the goddess suddenly appeared. She praised them for clearing the first part of the mission, and announced the second part was starting. But she warned them their current strength wasn't enough. They needed to level up before moving out first. Everyone had 3 days to form a group. Anyone who failed would be removed from the mission list. He hated that. Fighting alone helped him way more right now. So why was she suddenly forcing teams? The new mission was called Strength in Numbers, and every warrior of the ancient gods had to join a group. The group had to be registered in the... He guessed the next mission was so dangerous they made this rule to stop people from getting stranded alone. Too bad that messed with people like him who worked better solo. Now he had a problem. If he kept hiding his real strength, he'd probably get stuck with dead weight. Since Lynn already knew about the spider girl and was under the charm, she looked like his best choice, so he casually said this mission should be easy for someone as strong as her. She probably already had a group lined up. Looking a little awkward, Lynn admitted she was thinking about joining another team. That surprised him. She'd been surviving alone this whole time, which was honestly amazing, but Lynn hesitated and said that if it was only the two of them, she might not be able to protect him, so maybe another group was better. That confused him. She'd always acted sure she could keep him safe, so why was she doubting herself now? Then it clicked, the system's warning. Her shaky confidence, and the fact she had no team. Maybe she used to have one, and they were all killed, so he gently told her not to worry. He said he'd been lucky, and Sister Chirp was really strong with her around. They could gain a lot. Lin looked embarrassed in his head. He figured that bringing up the giant spider clearly wasn't helping. If praising Chirp failed, maybe acting weak would trigger Lin's need to protect him. And with the charm active, he didn't think she'd turn on him anyway, so he explained that even if Chirp was powerful, his class was special. He could only boost her, not fight well himself. That meant being alone was too dangerous. Whenever Chirp fought, he just hid and panicked. Then he leaned in hard, saying he'd feel much safer with Big Sis beside him, and the moment the goddess gave this mission, Lin was the first person he thought of if she didn't hate him. They should team up. He was playing this perfectly, and Lin tried to resist, but in the end she gave in, saying that if he was in danger because of her, she had to help. She even grabbed his hand. The system said his sad little act had worked on her protective side, but he was still a total scoundrel. Now they had a new issue. They needed points to register the team. He had none, and Lin only had 100. She asked how they were supposed to get 300 more so fast. Just then, a chubby guy named Pan Wei showed up and offered all his points if he could join Lin's group. The system noted that in a world this harsh, someone with such a bad-looking status screen had to have some useful talent. The protagonist asked Lin if she knew him. She said they'd only talked once, but he kept bothering her. After that, she thought he'd finally stopped, so the protagonist asked if Pan Wei was basically stalking her, but the guy quickly denied it. He said he wasn't a creep, had just seen Lin fight that day and was amazed by how strong she was. The protagonist glanced at Lin like, "You beat a goblin barehanded?" She started to deny it, but Pan Wei kept going, saying the most unforgettable part was how she protected her fallen teammates, even while getting hurt herself. Lin cut him off and told him to stop dragging it out and say what he wanted. Pan Wei explained that battle was so brutal, Lin was the only one left standing. Had been too scared to move, but after seeing that, he believed she was worth trusting his life to. That confirmed the protagonist's guess. Her old group had probably been wiped out. Pan Wei added that as soon as he heard the goddess message, he ran over to find her. He had no real combat power, and if Lin rejected him, he'd probably die in some other group. The protagonist noticed this guy was also leaning hard on her kindness. The system instantly snapped back, "What do you mean also, you scoundrel?" Pan Wei kept pleading, saying he believed Miss Lin would never abandon him, which was why he was offering all his points. Lin still looked unsure, like she wanted to refuse but couldn't quite do it. Then Pan Wei transferred exactly 1 point. The protagonist was stunned. After all that? Just 1 point? Still, a sneaky idea came to him. Maybe this chubby guy had some kind of talking skill. If so, the protagonist could use him later and let Pan Wei take credit for the group's achievements. Instead of drawing attention to himself, Pan Wei kept selling himself, saying he might not help in combat, but he was good at planning and logistics. The system checked him and said Pan Wei didn't seem ambitious at all. He honestly just wanted someone to keep him alive. If even the system thought he was okay, then maybe he was. So the protagonist said joining them wasn't impossible, but Pan Wei had to do something first. Pan Wei jumped at it and said he'd do anything. Lin asked if he really planned to let this guy into the team. He told her to relax, he had a plan. Then he told Pan Wei to go to Lu Qi's group and claim he was the man they were searching for. Pan Wei froze and asked if he really meant pretending to be that guy. Yes, exactly that. Pan Wei worried they wouldn't believe him, and it would only bring trouble. The protagonist bluffed that the so-called boss they wanted was his friend, so there was nothing to fear. Pan Wei still hesitated and asked why. If that was true, he didn't just tell his friend himself. Little Chirp gave him a small smack, and the protagonist answered that his friend moved through the shadows and couldn't be detected. Then he told Pan Wei to cut his hair a bit and go. Pan Wei touched his head in confusion, but gave in. The protagonist promised that if anything went wrong, his friend would protect him. With that, Pan Wei reluctantly agreed. He sighed and said he had no choice. If he wanted into the group, he had to take the risk. After he left, Lin looked at the protagonist and asked if he was actually the boss. He quickly denied it, then told her to keep quiet. Even with the spider, he said he was still weak, and letting people know about him would be dangerous. It was better for Pan Wei to collect the points for their group. Lin, now fully fired up, promised nothing would happen to him while she was around. Pan Wei soon reached Li Qi's camp. There were a lot of people there, but he tried to stay calm, telling himself that even if he got exposed, the boss would save him. He also had a communicator, so the protagonist could coach him through the lie. Had already been told that since the real target was a solo player, Pan Wei had to enter alone to make it believable. As he held the communicator, Li Qi and his people were discussing how to divide things, now that everyone had to build one big group. Then someone came in and announced that the man tied to the bounty had arrived to collect it. Pleased, Li Chi told them to bring him, and Pan Wei stepped inside and said he'd been out hunting, only just learned they were looking for him and wanted to if they were friend or foe inside. He was panicking, there were way too many people here and he needed to finish this before anyone saw through him. Li Chi proudly introduced himself as the leader of the group. He explained the notice was only because people were hard to find now, and said they meant no harm. Then he invited Pan Wei to sit and tell them his name. Finally settling down a little, Pan Wei introduced himself. The protagonist listens to the whole exchange through the communicator. Li Chi says they only wanted to satisfy their curiosity. Anyone who beat a boss alone had to be someone special. Li Chi starts studying him more closely, since he doesn't match what they expected. Pan Wei shoots back that group fighters just don't understand how strong a solo hunter can be. He says that when he found the goblins, he knew the only way to kill their leader was to sneak into the base. That seems to be enough for Li Chi to believe Pan Wei was involved. Impressed, Li Chi asks for more details about the boss fight. Hearing that, the protagonist realizes Li Chi already knows part of what happened and is testing him. Pan Wei gets bolder and says fine, he'll explain. He claims that he usually ends fights in one hit, but this boss was different. When he entered, he saw the goblin shaman riding on the centaur. Most people would have frozen, but he says he felt no fear at all. According to him, the centaur fired arrows first, and he knocked them away with ease. Someone blurts out that he blocked the leader's arrows with a one-handed sword. Pan Wei mocks him for being clueless. He explains the centaur was weakened by the slave collar, so its arrows weren't that strong. Then he says he used explosive arrows. Maybe the boss blocked them, but they still did damage. When the smoke cleared, the boss rose into the air and called on ancestral power in a desperate rage, but Pan Wei says had already activated his dimensional slash. He finishes by saying the last thing he saw was the boss brain falling out. Some people look impressed, but others think the story sounds off. The blonde man beside them says rank info isn't everything. People can hide skills and strength. The protagonist is relieved Pan Wei is thinking fast and keeping them on the hook. Still, Luke hasn't bought it yet. He says it's a good story, but asks how Pan Wei got there without fighting anyone, since there were no battle traces on the way. That question makes Pan Wei nervous. The protagonist quickly tells him through the communicator not to panic and to repeat what he said about the Goblin Temple. Pan Wei follows the script. He says he knew the goblins cared deeply about the temple, so he attacked it first to draw them away, fought the boss alone, then returned and wrecked the temple. He thinks it over. The story fits what he knows, but Pan Wei still doesn't match the image they had in mind. He is about to press further when someone rushes in and announces they found the person from the wanted list. The room instantly turns tense because now there are two claimants. People around them start getting suspicious. They wonder whether Pan Wei was lying the whole time. Lucky presents both men and says one of them must be lying, unless they're working together. Pan Wei fires back, calling the newcomer a fake, pretending to know his friend. The new guy looks surprised and says he only came for the 400 points, but now it seems he's out of luck. After looking Pan Wei over, he says his 5-element skill can judge a person's strength, and this guy is weak. So, in his eyes, there's no way Pan Wei beat the boss alone. He's just another fraud after the reward. Lucky asks the newcomer if he can prove who he is, and the guy with glasses jumps in. He points out that the newcomer's gear matches the drawing, and he's seen this man's strength himself. If Pan Wei is telling the truth, he needs proof too. Pan Wei, now acting confident, says they're only doubting him because they haven't seen his weapon. Lucky tells him to show it, so Pan Wei pulls out a bow, a small knife and some arrows. That was the protagonist's idea. Anyone in that fight would likely need a bow for the centaur, and a cutting weapon because Little Chirp tore everything apart. Pan Wei thinks this will settle it, but then the blue-haired girl speaks up. She says the one who killed the goblin had to have used a sword. The protagonist is thrown off. Little Chirp killed with raw force, so why did they decide it was a sword slash? Realizing their read is wrong, he tells Pan Wei to leave now. Pan Wei slams the table and snaps that this is no way to treat a guest, so he's done staying there. He leaves the communicator behind and walks out of the tent. Right then, Hu Yong receives the 400 points from Lokik. Lokik feels relieved they didn't get fooled by Pan Wei, though he still isn't fully sure about Hu Yong either. Even so, he thinks Hu Yong looks talented enough to recruit. Hu Yong prefers working alone, but this mission needs a team, so he agrees to join while keeping his freedom, and Lokik accepts those terms elsewhere. Pan Wei apologizes to the protagonist for failing. The protagonist tells him not to feel bad. It was bad luck, and leaving the communicator behind still gave them useful intel, enough for Pan Wei to join the team. Hearing that, Pan Wei thanks him in relief. Then Big Sis asks the real question, how are they going to get the points now? The protagonist says he expected this. If tricks won't work, they'll take the points by force. Pan Wei freaks out and says they can't rob Hu Yong. 3 of them together still might not beat someone at the top of the rankings. The protagonist calms him down, saying his friend will help. All they have to do is wait until Hu Yong goes hunting alone, which fits his style. Then the protagonist grows quiet, and Shoin asks what's bothering him. He says he's sure he can beat Hu Yong, but Lucas the bigger problem. He can win against him too. The real issue is stopping him from escaping. Hu Yong confidently says not to worry. She'll handle that part. Meanwhile, Hu Yong moves through the forest while Pan Wei secretly keeps track of him. Then, without warning, Hu Yong appears behind Pan Wei and presses a huge sword to his throat. Pan Wei freezes and stammers that he only wanted to talk, but Hu Yong cuts him off, calling him a liar who can't be trusted. Pan Wei hurriedly says to relax. He explains that he knows Hu Yong only went to Lutak for the points and claims he has info that could get them far more if they work together. Tian lowers his sword, deciding this weak guy probably isn't a real threat. So he tells him to talk. Pan Wei lets out a relieved breath, while Hiying stays wary. Still, since Pan Wei looks so weak, Hiying figures it might be worth hearing him out. He asks where this so-called opportunity is. Trying to act smart, Pan Wei says he's not an idiot. If he gives the location away, Hiying will just take everything himself, so he wants a 5050 split. Hiying, clearly annoyed, starts drawing his sword again, and Pan Wei quickly begs him to stop. Hiying puts it away and tells him to quit talking nonsense and lead the way. Pan Wei takes him toward the goblin base. After looking around, Hiying realizes where they are and asks why they're back at the goblin base. He says he already searched the whole temple and found no hidden treasure. Pan Wei insists it's inside and tells him to come on. But Hiying's expression turns cold. He already checked everything there. So why is Pan Wei lying? Pan Wei drops to his knees and begs for mercy, saying he only lied because he admired Hiying's strength and wanted to team up. Hiying doesn't buy a word of it. Then Pan Wei's attitude suddenly changes. Now it doesn't matter at that moment. Hiying realizes he's walked into a trap. Pan Wei smirks and starts to gloat, but then Hiying vanishes. He has already escaped the pitfall and appears right behind Pan Wei. Ting wonders why this weakling would try such a childish trap. Deciding Pan Wei must want to die, he raises his sword, but before he can strike, Little Chirp suddenly jumps in and saves Pan Wei. The hit sends Hiying flying back. He curses to himself, shocked by how strong the monster is, and wonders why it's protecting Pan Wei. Still, he decides to retreat for now and get revenge later. Then he realizes something's wrong. His body won't move. Looking back, he sees Dinyu used a taunt skill that forces him to stay and fight for at least 5 minutes before he can react. A blade touches his neck and a voice warns that he's not going anywhere. The protagonist steps out from behind a tree. He tells Hiying not to be afraid. They want wealth, not his life. Then he adds that Hiying trained like a bandit anyway. By the next moment, Ting is already taking the 400 points. Hiying thinks that since he earned them easily, losing them isn't the end of the world. He just wants to survive, so he asks if they can let him go now that they got what they wanted. Pan Wei isn't ready to let him off so easily. After all the threats from earlier, he demands one of Hiying's items too. In the end, they squeeze another 50 points out of him. Hiying decides that's still better than losing his gear. Points can be earned back later. Then someone knocks him out with a hit to the head, and the protagonist acts casual, pretending he isn't the one controlling Little Chirp. He gives Hiying a friendly wave and says goodbye. Pan Wei is completely amazed, thinking the boss really showed up in person. After that, they head back to form their team, while Chirp slips quietly into the shadows. Back at Linkic Space, they learn one team is already full, and the second is almost full too. About 200 people total. Our guy manages to set up his small team, but the chubby guy ends up as leader. He's a little embarrassed by it, but the other two act like they trust him all the way. That's really the protagonist's plan. He doesn't want any attention on himself. The chubby guy is deeply moved. He's basically ready to worship them. Pretty sneaky move. While Pan Wei talks to people and looks like the one running things, the protagonist quietly gathers rewards and stays hidden. For now, that's the smartest play. Then a portal opens behind them, and it pulls everyone to a new place. They get dropped hard onto the floor of a room, and the chubby guy gets smacked up from the landing. They quickly figure this has to be the gods doing the protagonists, as the place feels like a shopping mall. Right after that, the goddess appears and says this is a starting reward access to the team station. Each team gets its own private area, and if they use it well, they can earn a lot more rewards. The kind of residence they build gives different buffs, like spirit. They also get discounts on old station items, and rare gear can be bought here too. For now though, every team station is empty, so they have to choose a base style first. It also seems they can come here anytime from their base, since they're sent back to the starting point afterward. Every room has a qualification rank, and stronger teams get better ones. Thanks to Chirp and the soft rice, the protagonist team gets a diamond rank room. They're the only team with one that high. The news is that adding any room traits costs 1,000 points, and the protagonist is completely broke. Meanwhile, Luca, this team has 200 members and plenty of points, but their strength is spread out too much, so they only get platinum and gold rooms instead of diamond. Luca can't believe it. They gathered all the strongest people, so why no diamond room? Only diamond rooms can buy the best station with all the buffs. The blue-haired girl guesses the only one who might have gotten diamond is Hao, but he only got platinum. He receives a call from Luca, but the story cuts back to the chubby guy. The protagonist tells him a story. The boss, the chubby guy thinks is Chirp, gave them the diamond room. That's why their room is so good, but Kaiching points out it still doesn't help much. They don't have enough points to buy the residence or the bonuses, so the chubby guy suggests selling the room to someone rich like Luca. The protagonist would rather sell it to Hao, so Luca's group won't get suspicious. And if the protagonist is tied to that group, he may get support from Luca, which means profit without exposing himself. The chubby guy heads out, thinking it might be risky to contact the guy he just extorted. But before long he runs into him, and Hao grabs him by the collar, ready to settle the score. The chubby guy quickly blurts out, "Wait, MC, I was actually looking for you. We got a diamond room, want it?" He pauses and the chubby guy slips free, then he lays it out. If Hao wants it, he needs to show some respect. He offers the room for 500 points because the protagonist already figured out that's exactly how much the protagonist has. MC thinks that would wipe him out, but he's already cooking up a trick. Once the chubby guy is alone again, he thinks maybe he should just kidnap him and force the room out of him, but the chubby guy sees it coming and warns him he might get another hit to the head. Either Hao doesn't want the deal or he's broke. Some people really don't know how to grab a good chance. The protagonist grabs his shoulder and agrees to the trade, so they lose the diamond room and end up with a normal one. But at least they can style it like a cinema. The protagonist looks around. Why are only the three of them here? Where's the boss? Then he smoothly says the boss is shy and just isn't here right now. The chubby guy nods, but then the system warns the protagonist even if he acts convinced, he already suspects you're the real boss. This isn't just some chubby guy, he's sharp. That catches the protagonist off guard, but he decides it's fine, as long as the guy keeps playing along. The cinema room they picked boosts spiritual growth. A diamond room could raise as many as 4 attributes. But since the protagonist doesn't fight much, that isn't a huge loss for him. That's why he made the deal in the first place. They still have 230 points left for gear and mission supplies. The protagonist says the shop's weapons and armor are pretty bad and only worth buying in an emergency. The better move is improving attributes. He pretends he has a special talent that lets him see which stat fits each person best. But it's really the system feeding him the answer. He starts by checking Suing's stats. From what he sees, her best trait is strength, and she's already been training it. So the smartest buy is something that boosts her physical growth. Suing is impressed that he guessed she'd been focusing on strength. Then the chubby guy asks about his own stat, saying the coach at his gym always called him strong. Oddly enough, the system tells the protagonist to push agility instead. So to sell the idea, the protagonist says agility is what he needs to impress girls. Suing glances over and thinks there's no way this chubby guy has a shot. In the end, they buy Suing a book for physical training, the chubby guy a book for agility. And thanks to the residents, everyone's spirit keeps improving too. They also buy potions and return scrolls, leaving them with 130 points. A few shady guys who know the chubby guy are stunned to see he joined a team, became leader, and even bought a style for their residents. When he steps outside, they start tailing him. "Brother Pan, is that you?" They mock him for moving up so fast. Now he's captain. And his place even has a style, so where did all this come from and who's backing him? The chubby guy tells them to get lost. They used to bully him, and now they want to bother him again. One of them cuts him off and warns him to introduce whoever's helping him, Or else the chubby guy quickly reads the situation. They think it's weird that someone as weak as him got a fancy residence and became captain. The ancient gods may stop them from killing him, but they can still beat him up, and he'd rather not go through that. So he lies, saying his team has some super strong members who want to stay hidden. The guys don't buy it. Then why make him the leader? He says those people don't want to deal with this kind of mess, and only care about farming and leveling, so he handles things while they focus on getting stronger. It's a weak excuse, but it works long enough for him to get away. After that, he tells the protagonist everything and asks if this could become a problem. The protagonist says he expected attention the moment they bought a residence style. The good news is, those guys only know the team name and who goes in and out, and since they've only seen the chubby guy, they still don't know the protagonist or Suing are on the team. Then the goddess appears and says they should understand how the stations work by now. Part 2 is about to start. Their next mission is to explore the Misty Mountains past the forest, and the first goal is clearing the fog. Everyone will be sent to different spots. Good luck. Soon portals open in the mountains and our group arrives. The whole place is buried in fog. Seeing how huge the area is, the protagonist immediately understands why teams matter. The main quest is clear, remove the fog from the mountains, find its source, and bring sunlight back. But one part confuses the protagonist. If each team has to clear a fog, how is that supposed to work? The chubby guy is still recovering from the trip, when a very suspicious man suddenly shows up and greets him like an old friend. It's the leader of those shady guys, and he brought his crew. The chubby guy stands, but they start closing in on him. He claims Pan Wei talked about a bunch of strong teammates, yet all he sees is one woman and one kid. Pan Wei apologizes to the protagonist, saying he didn't think they'd find them this fast. The protagonist stays calm and says he expected trouble anyway. Suing quietly points out there are a lot of them and wonders if they should run. The leader then tells his boss he had reported 100 people, but now it's just these 3. The boss had wanted an alliance, but with such a tiny group, things look different. Still, he can't figure out how they had enough points to make a team, and by a style he realizes the woman and the kid must be carrying Pan Wei, so he shouldn't take them lightly. Even so, like any cocky thug, he decides to test them first. He reaches out his hand. His name is Wong, and he suggests they be friends. The system warns that he's arrogant. But careful, this is a test. The protagonist wonders what exactly he's planning. He reaches back and gives his name as Lin Ha. It turns out a handshake can reveal someone's power. The glow stays white, so Wong judges him to be as weak as Pan Wei. Then he reaches for Suing's hand, and the system explains that his special skill scale hand glows white for weaker targets and red for stronger ones. When he tests Suing, it gives off a faint red light, meaning she's only a little stronger than him. So he decides their gains must have just been luck, and there's nothing to fear. He looks at them and says they shouldn't explore the valley alone. His team is big, and if they join up, they'll be safer. Pan Wei fires back right away. They're not joining a bunch of backstabbers with hidden plans. Xiao Yum backs him up, saying how is their leader, and if he says no, that's the end of it. The thug's tone turns sharp. Pan Wei, he says you really don't get it. He wasn't asking, he was just telling them. Then he grabs MC's wrist like he's about to pull something. How lets it happen? Then glances back and winks their signal for everyone to stay still. A moment later, he is tied up, while Xiao Yan and Pan Wei are forced to lead the group. The thug smirks at the protagonist and says people always die on these trips, so it's good his 2 friends are walking in front to keep their side safe. Xiao Yan and Pan Wei still have return scrolls, so if things go bad, they can just run. Playing the bully, the guy calls how useless trash who only got lucky by meeting them, otherwise he'd already be dead. Then he sneers, saying he was starting to miss that face, even with blood all over it. How thinks people never know. Whole laugh last. But one thing's clear, it won't be this guy. The thug suddenly gets suspicious. If MC is so weak, why is the boss taking orders from him? He already tested him, and MC seemed no better than Pan Wei. He drops to his knees and acts terrified, begging to live. He says he'll be a slave, even a cow if he has to. The thug is left thinking, what kind of nonsense is that? Still, he asks if the protagonist will really do whatever he's told. The protagonist quickly says yes. The thug starts shaking as he hands over all his points and gear. How is pleased the guy was the captain and carried the loot for everyone. He figures he can pass it to Chubby or Sister Xiaoyan later. Crying now, the thug asks if he can leave since he gave everything up. But the system cuts in. He's lying, he's still hiding some items. MC decides he can still be useful, so he tells him that in all this fog, he'd have a better shot at living if he stays with them. Yep, the thug is coming too as they keep moving, How spots a mark he left earlier. That means they're somehow looping back even though they've been walking straight. He had thought Shorp made everyone vanish, but now he realizes a barrier is splitting people up and sending them back to where they started. While he thinks it over, Shorp catches a scent and fixes her eyes on a tree she quickly calls how over, and as they get close, a mission appears. This tree watches over the area, and destroying the formation it guards will break the barrier and bring sunlight back to the valley. Go mission, destroy the barrier's formation. He immediately notices the thug got the mission too. That tells him Chirp wasn't the reason his team got separated. So if he breaks the barrier, maybe he'll find them again. Except now he's tied to this tree. The thug glares at Hao, who acts like he couldn't care less. Then the thug suddenly uses a shadow clone style trick. Leaving a scarecrow behind and popping up behind the protagonist, he rushes for the tree, trying to finish the mission himself, but a huge monster bursts from the ground and sends him stumbling back in fear. He's instantly panicking. They're in serious trouble. The monster is a troll-like creature about 2 meters tall. An adult cave goblin hostile, it's the guardian of the eye formation that keeps the fog in place. Unlike normal goblins, this subspecies is smart and has crazy stats. Even the system tells how to get out of there. The thing has 25 strength and 25 constitution. MC is relieved he didn't trigger it first, and realizes the goddess wasn't kidding. This mission won't be easy. The thug starts begging him for help, but it looks like he's about to die. The protagonist is honestly enjoying it. Sure, the guy is finished. Then the story cuts to Chubby's side. Xiaobei drops one thug with a punch and tells the chubby guy to run. He tries to act confident, saying things are easier now that his agility went up. But his face says the exact opposite. Back at the tree, the cave goblin slams the thug into the ground and leaves behind nothing but a bloody mess. As the goblin turns, it barely avoids a sudden attack. The creature isn't just powerful, it's fast too. It lifts its giant hammer and smashes Chirp away, leaving her hurt and thrown back. With the surprise attack gone, the fight gets much harder. The goblin's stats are way higher. Xiaobei wants to use morale boost with Chirp's boss skill, but she needs time to set it up, so he has to distract the goblin first. The system warns him he's way too weak to draw that monster's attention. All he'll do is make it mad. So how is he planning to pull this off? MC grumbles about the rude system, but he knows it's right. He needs something that will really tick the goblin off. Then he remembers a skill he thought was useless. Oh, he's cooking up something weird again. The goblin smashes Chirp with its hammer and sends her flying, but right then some liquid splashes over its head. Perfect timing. Did it start raining? You already know the answer. Yep, it's Hao's long-distance P skill. He even sticks out his tongue and taunts the big guy, asking if it likes the smell. The goblin sniffs it, narrows its eyes and charges. Its hammer crashes down and Hao's shield breaks in one hit. That was way too close. But he uses that opening to trigger morale boost. Chirp rushes in from behind with her boss buff and cuts the goblin clean in half. The protagonist realizes he only lived because of the amulet Sister Xiaobei gave him at the start. Then Chirp hands him an item, the same amulet the thug used to switch places with a decoy. It's a rare scarecrow item. Once a day, it lets the user jump a short distance and leave a scarecrow behind. Hao is thrilled, so that's how Wang escaped before. After thanking Chirp, he checks the mission reward. Because he was the first ancient warrior to kill a cave goblin, he gets a purple chest. Sadly, it can only be opened back at base, so for now he has to keep it safe. With the guardian dead, the fog starts to fade. Now he needs to find the chubby guy and the others. After searching for a while, all they find are footprints. Even stranger, the path ahead keeps getting darker. Xiaobei asks little Chirp to find something to light the way, but before she can react, a cave goblin assassin nearly catches him by surprise. Luckily, Chirp pulls him out of danger in time. Cave goblin hostile, 12 strength for constitution, and 16 agility. Xiaobei thinks he should be able to handle this one. The system explains it's a cave goblin scout that hides underground and strikes from stealth. Surprise attacks are deadly for MC, especially since he depends on the Rice King's protection. He knows if he can't react in time, he's done, so he summons the Nimbus Cloud and yells for Spider-Woman to run. As they escape, he looks back and sees Chirp still fighting, but just when they think they're safe, another goblin bursts up from below and almost grabs him. The system says this is really bad and jokes that Hao should have better luck in his next life. Still, Chirpy manages to drag him out of danger just in time. As she keeps fighting, one more goblin appears behind her, and again she protects Hao from the attack. Things are getting desperate, and he realizes he's never been this close to dying. What makes it worse is his teleport takes 5 full seconds and can't be stopped once it starts. Then one of the goblins suddenly freezes and stares at him. Right when things are about to get worse, red rain starts falling over the area. A sign that Sister Xiaoyuan has arrived to save them. She immediately tells everyone to fall back. How orders chirp to help Big Sister. As the fight continues, the chubby guy watches in shock. He says they're already struggling, and if one more monster shows up, they're done. The protagonist grimly agrees. They can't use the return scrolls if it means leaving Xiaoyuan behind. Pan Wei, shaking now, pulls out a smoke bomb they took from the enemies earlier. It blinds everyone for 10 seconds. As he throws it, he yells for Sister Xiaoyuan to run. The blast goes off, and the goblins scatter in confusion. That gives them time to use their scrolls, and in an instant they're back at base. Once they return, Xiaoyuan scolds Hao for getting captured by that thug in the first place. He admits she has a point. MC says he wanted to see whether Wang had another trick planned, but things got out of hand fast after hearing about the cave goblin. Pan Wei is stunned and says he had no idea he went through that much. The protagonist puts a hand on Pan Wei's shoulder and says he's a trusted ally now, so he must already know who's really in charge. The boss is the protagonist. Judging from Pan Wei's status and what he's done so far, MC thinks he can trust him for now. Pan Wei says the lie doesn't matter to him, and then reveals he has a special ability that lets him sense those creatures. That's why Wang's group always sent him first, yet he never got hurt. He smiles and says that's perfect. If they use that skill in his next plan, they can win. Before heading out again, they buy a few supplies. They get a recovery item for Sister Xiaoyuan, and another smoke bomb so she can escape if needed. Pan Wei gets a large shield, and Hao starts thinking about his own defense. This fight showed him he can't always depend on Sherp to guard him, and Sister Xiaoyuan won't always be there either. He needs another way to stay alive, and his sneaky answer is getting another monster girl, this time one built for defense. He starts imagining a turtle-like monster girl protecting the team. He pictured all kinds of defensive monster girls, a turtle type to guard the team, a Medusa to turn enemies to stone, maybe even a healing harpy. A strong healer would be amazing. Then he dropped the idea. For now his level was still too low for another contract, and there was no promise he'd find the right monster girl anyway. So he decided to open the chest from the last mission and check his reward. He opened it. Inside was something like a strand of hair. It boosted all 5 senses, but once someone wore it, it could never be taken off. It also changed with the wearer's emotions. He stared at it, totally confused. Pianwei and Xiaoyuan were already walking over. Xiaoyuan asked what he was holding. Pianwei was about to comment too, but he quickly put it on and explained that it was an item that sharpened perception. He didn't care much about using it himself. What he really wanted was to make his team stronger, and since Pianwei already had sharp senses, this would fit him even better. Almost right away, Pianwei stiffened. He said there was something terrifying hidden in the protagonist's shadow. He had felt it before, but now it was much clearer. The protagonist brushed it off, saying it was just the chest reward and Pianwei should use it well. Pianwei gladly thanked him for the trust. The real reason he gave it away was simple. The item also exposed emotions, and that was bad for someone who liked acting weak and scared. Once they got back into the field, Pianwei could already feel it working. He warned that if he took one more step, goblins would attack. Going left felt safer, while the right side was more dangerous. So Pianwei took the lead and tossed a stone ahead. Something was definitely hiding there. A goblin burst out and lunged at them. The system identified it as the same one from before. Luckily, it had gone for the fake bait, which made things much easier. Xian used her lure skill, the goblin locked up, and Sherp swept in from behind to finish it. Then the mission screen popped up. It was like the earlier village raid mission, except this time they had to destroy the stone goblins' underground bases. The more bases they wiped out, the more rewards they'd get. So this was basically a cleanup job. The protagonist quickly laid out the plan, which was pretty much their usual routine. Pianwei would find the enemies, Xian would pull their attention, and Sherp would hit from behind. The three of them rode the cloud and kept hunting. The mission was harder now, and lots of people were dying. Luke and his team had gotten the same mission too, and they were already ahead just like them. The next part skips the visuals and rushes through the results. They hunted for a while and got several attribute potions, enough to help Pianwei and Xian level up. But no spirit potions dropped, so he still couldn't capture another creature since everyone was worn out. They headed back home, restocked on potions, and returned to battle as Sherp kept slicing through enemies. Another chest dropped for him. This one was big, a red rarity chest. It could only be opened back in the city around then, He noticed a man and got a warning from the system. The guy looked ordinary, but he had already switched to the Lancer class. One hit from him could be fatal. That left the protagonist confused. He didn't even know class changes existed. Then a goddess-like girl appeared, and his soft rice charm kicked in. The system teased him to stay focused. It said his charm was making the young woman want to take care of him, but not to get the wrong idea since she was just kind. Still, he had bigger things to celebrate. Pianwei and Xian had both reached level 2 and could change classes too. He leveled slowly himself because he rarely got direct kills. Without wasting time, he bought a class change book for Protector and gave it to Xian. Pianwei ended up with an agility-based class. Kind of strange for a fatty, but that was the result. The bad part was the price. Both books together cost 400 points. Still, he saw it as an investment. If his team got stronger, his own chances of surviving went up too. Back in their room, they used the books and both finished their class changes. Everyone checked the results, and Pianwei had become an agility assassin. The system joked that he could now kill the protagonist whenever he wanted, though he probably wasn't cruel enough to do it. It also pointed out that Xiaobei was now much more dependable, combining her monster luring ability with a shield class. In other words, sticking close to her was the smart move. The protagonist even bought extra shields and daggers for them. He really was soft-hearted then. It was finally time to open the big red chest. The three of them offered a quick prayer for luck. What came out was unexpected. It was a mythical spiritual roulette. The better your spiritual power, the better the rewards. The odds were crazy. 99 gold, and only 0.5 each for red and purple. It would give 3 items total, so it was already a great pull. There was a button to roll once or go Alan, and he smashed Alan right away. 3 items dropped and he froze in shock. The chapter, of course, ended on that cliffhanger. The loot turned out to be a book, a crown, and a scroll. He had wanted a spirit potion, but this still looked promising. Pianwei was stunned because the crown was gold rank, the first gold item they had ever seen. It was the Goblin Prophet's crown, a treasure tied to the goblin race. When worn, it added 3 spirit. He was definitely going to keep that for himself. The skill book was called Alien Body. It let the user turn spirit points into temporary power for someone else at a 5-to-1 ratio with 20 spirit points. He could give another person 4 extra attribute points for 1 minute. As long as they stayed within 10 meters, he was thrilled. Everything looked made for him. The book boosted spirit use, and the crown boosted spirit too. That pushed him to 21 spirit points, but there was still a catch. To advance, he had to train spirit to the max naturally, not just raise it with gear. Kijoin cut in and told him to stop showing off and read the scroll. The scroll gave a clue about the evil goblins. Among the cave goblins were some with special powers who wanted to become great prophets, but their lives were short. Then a leader named Sushing created a way to steal bodies and live longer. The other goblins saw it as unforgivable. A war broke out and the survivors hid away at the coordinates listed on the scroll. Kijoin didn't care much, but Pianwei figured a golden item had to lead to something valuable. The protagonist also noticed all 3 rewards seemed tied to the Goblin Prophet, so this looked like part of a set, and if the scroll and skill were spirit-based, the last piece probably was too. As they thought it over, he caught something important. When they killed goblins focused on agility or strength, they got matching attribute rewards. But the last big goblin had been magic-related, and it only dropped spirit items. That couldn't be a coincidence, so it seemed he had to handle this next mission alone. His friends were surprised, but he just told them to relax. The boss had it under control. Then he set out on his own. When he reached the place where the dungeon should begin, he told Chirp to hide in the shadow, since it looked like this mission required him to go in alone. Of course, he still kept her with him that way. He searched for the goblins and found nothing at first, until he spotted a figure, but it wasn't a spirit goblin, it was a transformed human. The system explained, this was a dead human body being controlled by an evil goblin through some secret method. A whole group soon surrounded him, so he used the language beans from earlier and called out to them. He demanded that the evil goblin show himself, and a large one stepped forward. It was a cave goblin adult shaman, surprised that he could speak their language. The system explained that even though it was a shaman focused on spirit, its body was also heavily strengthened because it was controlling many bodies and borrowing their stats. Then 2 more cave goblin shamans appeared. These 3 were the only survivors. The system guessed they were competing with each other, and the protagonist realized power was all they cared about, so he chose to bluff. He claimed he was a shaman too, and said he had come to show them the results of his research. Then he suddenly called out Chirp and sent her at the shamans. One shaman tried to buff the two humans in front, but the protagonist answered with his own skills and morale boost, blasting them back. The problem was that the enemies were tough to kill. One for sure, Chirp would need to use her boss skill, and that would leave her drained and him exposed. The old shaman was stunned. If he was one of them, why had he attacked? The protagonist lied that he had returned to lead them out of the forest, so they wouldn't need to hide anymore. One of the goblins doubted him and asked why he started by beating them up. He said it was to teach obedience, though really he had just wanted to see if that would trigger a mission. It didn't. The old goblin, unimpressed, told him to stop wasting time and say what he wanted. That made him think these isolated goblins might not trigger missions at all. The shaman admitted his monster was strong, but said she wouldn't have beaten his ally if that ally had been buffed. The system pointed out how cold-blooded he was. He was acting friendly now, only because he thought the protagonist might be useful. The protagonist started wondering if these creatures only gave missions when they threatened the ancient gods who sent him there, so he tried another lure, using his strengthening skill on the shaman's zombie and showing off how much stronger it could become. The shaman is stunned. How is that possible? My zombie got over 30 stronger. The other two are just as shocked to them. Only the great ancestral pillar should be able to boost a zombie past its limit. The protagonist keeps bluffing, saying that's why he came into this world, to gather knowledge and learn how to make himself stronger. The old shaman freezes, and the protagonist thinks to himself, they fell for it. So now, can we talk? Or are you still going to threaten me? He gestures at the goblin they beat earlier. The goblins look at each other, then finally agree and sit down to talk. At the table, the shaman says only 4 of them from the old days are still alive, so what can they even do? The protagonist answers that, besides the ones here, there's nobody else they can trust. Still, he says he'll only share what he knows after they calm down. He already knows these goblins only care about surviving and becoming the goblin's prophet. Then he points at his crown and asks, "It's been so long you don't even know what this is anymore, right?" The goblins stop cold when they realize it's the prophet's crown. They immediately think about taking it, but the protagonist cuts in first. He says the great ancestral gave him that crown, so there's no reason to steal it. That only makes them slam the table in anger. So you became the prophet? Then what's left to discuss? They'll take that title from you. One of them even gets ready to attack, but the protagonist stops him. He says he already knows how to become a prophet, and if they want the answer, they need to do something for him first. He also wonders if these human-using parasites count as a threat to the ancient gods, because if they do, maybe that will trigger a mission. Then he teaches them the method from the scroll, the one that lets them take over human bodies. After hearing that, the 3 shamans possess the humans they brought with them. Now they finally understand how a shaman can truly grow stronger. But even then, no mission appears. The oldest and strongest shaman suddenly sees his chance. He grabs the other 2 by the throat and drains all their life force, taking everything for himself. When he drops, he's already absorbed both of them without hesitation, gained a huge pile of stats, and raised his spirit to 29. The system comments that he's growing fast after consuming his partners, but he still has no plan to help you. The protagonist realizes things just got dangerous, though he still believes he can beat the shaman with help from Manhwa and Shoin. The scary part is how much stronger the shaman got from only 1 absorption. With a few more, he'd be almost unstoppable. Still, the protagonist figures there has to be some limit. If there wasn't, those goblins would have taken over the whole village already. Even so, the situation is getting risky. He wonders if he should kill this guy right now, but the shaman cuts in first, asking what else he needs to do to become a prophet. The protagonist notices the shaman's spirit stat is marked as limited. That makes him think goblins may have a hard cap. So he calmly asks if the shaman knows about goblin power limits. The shaman snorts and says everyone knows that. Their mental strength stopped growing long ago, so why ask? The protagonist says he pulled memories from the body he's using now and learned that the ancient gods empower their warriors. So if a goblin wants to keep evolving, he has to become one of those warriors. The shaman gets mad. Forget that I'm already betraying my race, and now you want me to be those gods' slave too. That makes the protagonist suspicious. This guy just killed his own allies, so talking about loyalty now is obviously fake. He goes on to say the goblins in the village were wiped out by Lukek and his group, who have powerful gear and skills. The shaman listens and asks if staying in this form and using the god's power would let him become a prophet. The protagonist answers with total confidence, "Of course, just look at my crown." Then he tries to get the shaman to help destroy the cave goblins. The shaman doesn't gain power very efficiently on his own, so this deal works for both sides. The protagonist clears the cave goblin mission and the shaman gets stronger on his path to becoming a prophet. The shaman finally gives in. "You're right, goblins do have limits. And if I hate those gods so much, then I'll just take all their power." Watching his panel, the protagonist gets a note from the system. A goblin is still a goblin, no matter the race. These idiots really bought your story to sell the lie even more. The protagonist rides his cloud and calls it a gift from the gods. That seems to convince the shaman. They head back to base, and the second they arrive, a mission finally appears because the shaman now counts as a threat to the gods. The mission says the sacred land of the ancient gods must not be tainted. A wicked goblin entered the god's city. Kill the shaman for a golden spiritual agate chest. The protagonist is thrilled. After all that setup, he finally gets a spiritual chest, and now he can use the finish him off. The next chapter opens with the warrior girl smashing her training bag so hard it bursts. She's been missing the little guy and wondering where he is after being gone so long. The chubby one munches a potato and tells her to trust their brother. He'll be back soon. Then his antennae suddenly start twitching like crazy. The potato drops and he throws up, completely shaken. When she asks what's wrong, he says, "Something awful is coming," so terrifying it made him vomit. She's confused. He didn't even react this badly when they were fighting cave goblins, and they're inside a safe city. Then he stares at the door and says the danger is coming from there, and it's close. Right then the protagonist shows up with his new ally, cheerfully saying he brought someone to help them. The warrior girl quickly realizes the threat wasn't How, it was the one beside him. The protagonist tells the goblin these are the allies he mentioned, and reminds him to act friendly and use the human name he was given. The goblin folds his arms and says he remembers, though these two seem weak and have awful spirit. As he walks over, the protagonist subtly shakes his head to show he's bluffing, and she catches the hint right away. The goblin politely introduces himself as their new partner and greets her. She answers, leaving the goblin slightly annoyed, so he turns to greet the chubby guy, who's so scared that he throws up on him. The protagonist instantly says there's a bathroom nearby where he can clean off once the goblin leaves. The protagonist quickly tells his teammates everything that happened. They're clearly nervous, but then he reveals his big plan. He wants to use this guy against the fortress, then kill him after he's weakened. In other words, they're using one monster to fight the others. The two of them get fired up by how evil smart that plan is. A little later, the chubby guy says that as team leader, he'll go with Lean Hao's idea. The protagonist says this guy is strong and can help with their next mission, so he's in. The protagonist gives the goblin a look, and the goblin awkwardly thanks the leader. But inside, he thinks these humans are complete fools. They trust MC, and MC trusts him, but in the end, he plans to be the winner. Later, some cave goblins attack in the forest. The warrior girl warns the group, and they start making a plan. The shaman hates that they're wasting time planning around such weak enemies at this rate. He thinks he'll never become a prophet, so he grumbles and stands up. The chubby guy asks where he's going, but the goblin ignores him. He powers up, jumps high, and fires 2 cursed arrows straight through the goblins' heads. They die instantly. He sneers that cave goblins are pathetic and still act like savages. Just like the protagonist hoped, the team still gets points from the kills. The only downside for the shaman is that absorbing these goblins barely raises his stats. Meanwhile, the protagonist's team happily collects the loot. Then a huge goblin with a club appears. The shaman figures now the humans will finally have to do something. Instead, the other two just run away screaming for help. The goblin mutters about how weak they are, while the protagonist acts helpless and says he doesn't want to use his spider because it would scare his allies, so the goblin is on his own. As the club swings down, the protagonist just waits to see what kind of power he reveals. The goblin activates a blood transformation, catches the club with one hand, then punches the enemy so hard it explodes. That skill turns all his spirit into raw strength, pushing him to 37 stronger than any elite they've seen. Even the system stops mocking and warns that this guy is far stronger than your spider, so don't try anything stupid or you'll get crushed. After several days, the shaman confronts the protagonist. He says he's been helping this whole time, but still hasn't become one of the ancient gods' warriors. The protagonist says it took him a long time to earn the gods' approval too. Once the shaman does enough, they'll acknowledge him. Then he calls him out. He's noticed that in every fight the shaman secretly absorbs everything. How is he supposed to earn the god's favor? Acting like that? Privately, the protagonist is getting worried. Most of the shaman's stats are already above 20, and he may not be able to control him much longer. The goblin tries to brush it off, saying he only absorbs more so he can help more. A liar trying to fool another liar. The protagonist answers by sharing a secret. The harder the mission, the better the chance of gaining the god's approval. The goblin finally understands. So these weak barbarians aren't worth his time. The protagonist agrees they need stronger prey. Time skips ahead again. The warrior girl has learned a new skill. The chubby guy got a new cloak and hat, and the whole team is gearing up. Even so, the shaman is getting uneasy. Are they making this guy too strong? This could turn into a disaster. The protagonist calms him down. They still need the shaman, since he's the one who finds everything. They keep moving and soon reach another cave. The chubby guy points ahead. He senses something huge there. The protagonist also notices a lot of people and wonders what's inside. The shaman couldn't care less. Anyone in his way is dying at the entrance. Someone stops them. King Luke is hunting here, so they need to find somewhere else. The girl starts to back off, but then one of them recognizes the group. It's the guy who tried to steal 400 points from them, points he claimed were his. As they move closer, the group acts harmless, saying they don't want trouble. Nobody buys it. The others explain that King Luca entered first, and their readings show strong creatures inside, so no one else is going in. They plan to clear it little by little. The chubby guy gives in and steps back, though he's obviously annoyed. The shaman mutters under his breath, and the protagonist decides to see how hell react. He tells the chubby guy to search for other missions nearby. Once he leaves, the protagonist pulls the shaman aside for a quick talk. He asks if he noticed something and why he stayed quiet. Caught off guard, the shaman plays dumb, but the protagonist knows he's hiding something. He tells him to stop lying. How can he earn the god's approval if he isn't honest? After a pause, the shaman admits there's a mutated stone lizard in there. The protagonist asks what that is. The shaman says they studied it while experimenting with life force, but lost access when the barbarians drove them out. Interested, the protagonist asks what he means by life force. The shaman says it's hard to explain, but capturing the creature would push their life power research much further. Pretending to be impressed, the protagonist says that sounds like a perfect way to impress the gods. Too bad it's trapped in there. The shaman assures him not to worry, those idiots won't matter. He knows this place well. Once they're inside, the girl is impressed that the new guy is already useful. He brushes it off, saying he just knows the cave. The chubby guy tells him not to be modest. Luck counts as talent too. Still, the protagonist finds it odd that the chubby guy hasn't warned them about any danger. Maybe he can't sense anything here. Then the antenna on his head suddenly tilts in one direction. Following the shaman's route, they go deeper inside and find a chained monster girl. The shaman laughs, saying he knew it. The barbarians worked hard to control her and set up that magic circle. The girl feels sorry for her. She looks like a child. The system identifies her Andura, a stone lizard mother, though still young. She has incredible healing magic and can recover from almost any wound, but after being locked in this cave, studied, and sealed for so long, she now hates everyone she sees. That gets the protagonist excited. Healing magic, and she's sealed. He wants to make her his second capture. The shaman warns him that the chains are packed with magic. If they break them, the owner of this place will know right away. So they should just leave and look for something better, but the protagonist isn't letting this go. She fits exactly what he wants. And he's not leaving her behind. He quickly buys an item from the shop that lets him speak into someone's mind. Then sends the shaman a message. Blood treasure. Startled, the shaman asks what that sound was. The others look confused and say they heard nothing. The protagonist keeps talking in his mind. This is your test, he says. He was pleased to see the shaman trying to abandon his goblin nature and become one of his warriors. He's been watching him, and now comes the final trial. The shaman is thrilled. The ancient god finally noticed him. This is his chance to grow stronger and become a prophet. A huge grin spreads across his face as he realizes the perfect chance is right in front of him. The protagonist sees that look and thinks humans and goblins really are alike. After all the shaman gave up to reach this point, there's no way he'll back down, so the shaman tells the group he received a mission. He has to free this lizard, but he can't do it alone and needs their help. The protagonist gives a sly smile, and the others agree right away. The chubby guy says of course they're a team, and the shaman always helps them. Endura starts to wake, thinking, so they send humans for her to feed on. Everyone moves in excitedly, but the protagonist notices his Rice Emperor skill didn't make her. Only neutral. The system warns him that talent isn't unbeatable, and Dura's hatred runs too deep. So if he's thinking about making a contract, he should forget it. He realizes this contract won't be easy. The shaman calls out to Endura, saying they've come to save her, and that the ancient gods gave him this mission. She doesn't believe a word of it. Freedom was used to trick her once before, and she refuses to fall for that again. The chubby guy freaks out, yelling that she's talking to herself, and Endura immediately orders the cave goblins to attack. The problem is, her magic has strengthened all of them. The three companions share a look like they have a plan, then jump in front of the shaman. He asks what they're doing, and they answer that they want to prove they're useful too. The shaman is stunned. They suddenly seem much stronger, and he wonders if they were acting weak the whole time to test him. If so, even better, maybe he won't have to fight much. But then he sees the two of them already clashing with a goblin. So he tells the protagonist he'll handle the other three while he breaks the circle. Then he rushes in with his blood transformation power, and goblins start dropping fast. Endura, shocked, tries to fight back, but he keeps pressing. He mixes cursed power with his arrows, smashing the goblins into the ground. He tells her healing magic means nothing if her goblins can't survive his hits. Endura freezes. She remembers the 4 shamans who stole her power and tortured her. This goblin is one of the cursed ones who dragged her into this nightmare. The shaman wipes out the 3 goblins with ease, and even the protagonist is impressed. This guy really is strong, but the girl isn't accepting that. She shouts that today he dies and uses her divine favor. Seeing that, Endura boosts the others again and fully heals them. The protagonist is amazed. Then Endura stares straight at the shaman. She swears he will never escape. Even if it costs her the freedom she always wanted, she'll destroy him. The shaman finally understands. She knows he's one of the ones who imprisoned her long ago. Her heart is overflowing with hatred, and the goblins go wild, as he realizes this is her boss-level skill. Whoever sealed her here must have feared her escape and left all her power intact. Now all that hatred is locked onto him, and all he needs is for the protagonist to break the circle. He yells for him to do it now, but when he looks over, the protagonist is holding a scroll and getting ready to run. He calls the shaman a fool. If he wants to blame someone, blame himself for trusting him. From the start, he only planned to use him. Thanks to the shaman, his biggest problem is gone. Now he can go to hell. The shaman screams in rage as the protagonist escapes. Endura burns with fury too, remembering the name Sunin and swearing that today he dies. Now desperate, the shaman screams back that they'll all die. His arms glow red as he roars that he'll kill her first, then those wolves. His mind finally snaps while the group uses an expensive teleport scroll to get away. The chubby guy senses the shaman's mad aura and points ahead. They need to finish this, so they take off running, though the protagonist still isn't sure the shaman can really kill the warrior girl. Then someone else shows up, complaining that even with earth travel power, this cave is impossible to navigate. It's a maze, and he's completely lost. Then he spots the group. He recognizes the chubby guy and his friends, wonders why they're running, and decides to follow since he's still lost back in the cave. The shaman grabs a goblin and tears it apart with his bare hands. The fight gets brutal, and the protagonist is shocked. It's 4 against 1. Yet the shaman is tanking everything. Another goblin tries to attack from behind, but the shaman roars and blasts everything away with an exploding bubble. The girl starts getting tired and asks if they should step in. The protagonist asks the same, feeling the pressure build. The system explains that the shaman broke the magic linking Endura to her minions, which weakened her. Then it mocks him now that she's weaker. He wants to make a contract, doesn't he? He snaps back that he just wants to use this chance to take care of her properly. The shaman rises and declares that even if he was cast out, he's still a shaman who almost became a grand shaman. In the end, everything is magic. If you know how it works, you can break it. He explains that when he pierced the goblins, he wrapped their power with his own magic so Endura couldn't strengthen them, but it cost him a lot. Without her minions, he says, she's useless. Now she'll pay the price. Endura starts praying to Mother Earth for one last wish, even if it costs her life. Kill this man. The shaman grabs her and says she belongs to him now, but then everything shifts. Looking around in confusion, He suddenly sees her towering over him. He panics. Why is he small? What just happened? He realizes he's been cut in half. Looking up, he sees the huge figure above him. Lady Endura, it took a long time, and you've suffered enough. She's already recovering, but when she reaches out to thank her rescuer, she suddenly freezes in shock. A flashbang explodes behind the protagonist. It's the chubby guy trying to get smart. The mission the protagonist needed for the spiritual chest is finally done. But Endura recognizes him at once. He was with the shaman earlier. He says it's a long story, but he'll explain if she's willing to hear him out. So he tells her everything. She listens, ignoring the face he keeps making. In the end, she says she gets it, yet her status is still hostile. She mostly believes him, but her guard never drops. The Rysora charm clearly has limits. The protagonist can't believe it. He killed the man who wanted her dead and saved her. But it still wasn't enough, so he tries again, offering his hand and saying it's too dangerous here. He should escort her out so they can talk somewhere safe. She slashes his hand, and Chirp the spider instantly gets ready to attack. He stops her fast, telling Chirp to calm down. They're trying to make friends. It hurts like crazy since his body isn't very tough. Still, he keeps going. She's been trapped in this cave for a long time, so what she just did was probably an accident. She even looks a little sorry, but her difficulty and hostility stay the same. The system mocks him. Did he really think she healed him because she trusted him? She's just trying to play with his feelings. He admits she almost fooled him, that healing looked sincere, and now his hand is completely fine. Not even a mark left. Endera points out that Lizard Clan healing magic is amazing. Then it clicks. She acted cold, hurt him, then healed him to earn sympathy. Without the system panel, he would have fallen for it. So he praises her healing and says she must have gone through a lot all these years. She shuts him down right away, telling him not to worry about it. Inside, he admits she's tough. His companion still can't tell what he's planning, and Chirp hates how Endera treated him. Even after all this, he still has to find a way to win her over. The others tell him they've stayed too long and need to leave the cave. He agrees. This is goblin territory, and if they come back, they're in trouble. So he starts walking away, saying that if Lady Endera doesn't trust their good intentions, there's nothing else he can do, and he has to leave before his allies get dragged into danger. That finally gets a reaction. She calls out for him to wait. He thinks she's still acting, but wonders if he should play along. Turning back, he asks what she wants. She hesitates, then says, "All right," pressed to finish. She agrees to go with them. He smirks and accepts. Then he tells her to get on Chirp. Endera is impressed by the spider, while he's amazed her difficulty still hasn't dropped at all. So he pulls out the cloud. Endera is already moving out, when the chubby guy asks if the kid is coming too. The protagonist glances at the throne and thinks it's more than decoration. Then he notices someone's inside it. The guy is in trouble because Chirp is about to strike. He warns the man to get out of there, but Chirp only slices off the top, and the throne falls apart with nothing hidden inside. The man got lucky. Sweating, he steps out and admits that was close. He still has no idea what's going on, except for one thing: the protagonist is dangerous. Now he's wondering how to use that to his advantage, maybe by being nicer to the chubby guy. But then Luke suddenly yells in his ear, "Where are you? And what are you doing?" Poor Luke still wants to steal the protagonist's credit. Maybe the others backed off because he killed a bunch of men in the cave and broke the magic circle. After hearing that, Luke says that circle must have been important, and thanks him for the hard work. The guy starts wondering if he's making another mistake. Is he just getting lucky and taking rewards he didn't earn? Then again, maybe that's a pretty good strategy. Outside, Endora shields her eyes and starts crying. She can't believe she really made it out after so long. She'd almost forgotten how warm the sun feels. She breaks down, saying she suffered so much in that place and never wants to return to that darkness. The chubby guy wants to comfort her, but the protagonist warns him not to. She'll probably hit him even now. He thinks she's still acting. He can't figure it out by now. Anyone else would have dropped their guard, so what is she trying to do? If freedom is all she wants, why not just accept it? Why keep up the act? He also knows her weakened state won't last forever. Once she recovers, he still needs a contract. Back at the cave, everyone is celebrating because Luke let them go in and collect rewards. Too bad the biggest reward is already gone. Endora asks why those other two-leggers are entering the cave, and if they're with him. He answers that they're not just two-leggers. They're warriors of the ancient gods. And no, they aren't together. His group only used the distraction to rescue her. She rubs her chin and says these so-called warriors of the ancient gods are smarter than she expected. No wonder the resurrection altar has been running non-stop. The protagonist asks what that altar is. She explains that it gathers the life force of dead goblins. When one dies, its energy goes to the altar, and the altar brings it back. The magic circle kept feeding it power, but now that their abilities are gone from that place, the altar won't keep working. Then she cheerfully says that if his friends can kill goblins now, she'll go kill everyone and let out her anger. So the whole life control setup came from her. That only makes things feel more suspicious still. Luca should be able to clear the cave now. The protagonist already got what he wanted, so he won't ask for payment. As he watches Andorra talking with Sister, he thinks that after so many years, she should know life power well, so why is she acting like this? Why does it feel like she's trying so hard to fool them? By nightfall, they still haven't reached the city. The chubby guy sees that Andorra needs to recover and offers her some food. She hesitates, then finally accepts it and says she'll try. But after one bite, she spits it right into the chubby guy's face. She says it's disgusting, and guesses it wasn't good after all. Xiaobin shrugs and says it isn't tasty, but it's still edible. Maybe her taste is just different. The protagonist guesses food from the ancient gods probably doesn't work for monster girls. That makes him think of Chirp and a special item he could use on her. Like a collar. Then he gets an idea. Jumping onto the cloud, he says he'll be back soon with something better. As he speeds off, he remembers giving Chirp a plant she liked once, only for it to crush her mental state. Maybe that could work again. It wouldn't lower her strength or speed, but it might make her easier to tame. So yes, he's basically trying to drug the monster girls. After looking around for a while, he finds the Snoop Dogg plantation. Almost right away, Chirp tries to eat it, but he stops her just in time, knowing it would leave her completely useless. He tells her to relax. He'll get her something else. Since he agreed to let her wear webbed clothes, she holds back for now. With the Snoops in hand, he heads back to the city to open the spiritual chest. Inside is a potion that gives him 2 spirit points. Naturally, he drinks it right away, then uses the advancement potion and levels up successfully. A light, breezy feeling spreads through him. This advancement is much clearer than the last one. His vision sharpens instantly, then his passive skill activates monster education. It tells him Chirp is an extremely agile monster built for ambushes and assassination. He should raise her strength first, then agility to upgrade her. He needs relics from ancient spiders. Now he understands this passive exists to help evolve his monsters. The only problem is figuring out what ancient spider relics even are. Still, that can wait. Right now, he needs to raise his contract with Chirp to level 1 and capture the lizard girl. Meanwhile, that soap opera lizard keeps up the act, wondering why he's taking so long and why he still hasn't come back. Xiaolian asks what she used to eat. She says fruit, but there isn't any on this island. While imprisoned, she was forced to eat meat. She keeps acting until the protagonist returns with the magic herb. She devours it like it's the best food ever. When the chubby guy reaches for some, she smacks him away with her tail. Even then, her status is still hostile. The system says she did like what he brought, so when she eventually enslaves him, she'll probably treat him nicely. It's like both sides are trying to capture each other, but while her spirit keeps dropping, the protagonist still isn't buying the act. Cold looks, hurting him, healing him, crying, acting weak. He sees it all as a careful plan to distract everyone. Chubby and Xiaobei and already believe her, so now he waits to see her next move. Then she suddenly acts sleepy, blaming the herb, and lies down. Xiaobian says that despite how she looks, she's basically like a human child. The protagonist tells the others to rest while he takes watch. As everyone sleeps, he wonders if it's trauma from all those years. A good person would try to heal that, but he admits he isn't one. Poor Andorra starts having nightmares. She cries out for someone to get away from her, waking everyone up. Panicking, she screams that she doesn't want to be imprisoned again and tells them not to come near her. Xiaolian thinks it's just a nightmare from her terrible memories, but the protagonist still sees acting. To him, this is what a level 2 monster does, so he puts on his own caring face and says the poor thing must be dealing with trauma. Chubby asks if there's anything they can do, or if she'll suffer like this forever. The protagonist says probably not, but he's already planning ahead. Maybe she's using her trauma to lower their guard, but if she wants them to believe it, she'll have to expose herself too, and that's when Hell move. He gathers everyone and says he has a plan that might help her get past her fear, but Hell need all their support. If they all play their parts, making a contract will be much easier. They agree, and when Andorra wakes up later, she finds nobody there. She waits until dawn, and still no one comes, so they really left a girl like me alone in the forest. Not like I expected much anyway. Still, she wonders if they figured something out, but her act was perfect, so that shouldn't be possible. Then she spots the chubby guy lying in a puddle of ketchup and freaks out. What's going on? What happened? The protagonist steps out from behind a tree. Yep, that guy wasn't dead. He came back for revenge first. He attacked me, then Manhwa, and he took Xiaoyan. This is a complete mess. And Dora blurts out that it's impossible back in the cave. She checked again, and again he had to be dead, still shaken. She hears a voice cut in. At last I found you, my dear Andorra. She stares at the figure. You didn't die in the cave? How is that possible? Her thoughts spiral. He should be dead. Maybe this is a trap. But he really looks like Xiaopu. Should she run or fight? The system notes that even if she's still acting a bit, deep down the shaman is what scares her most. Right now she's truly terrified. Of course it isn't really the shaman, it's Xiaoyan, after using a transformation pill. I couldn't leave you wandering alone, so I came back from hell to bring you with me. Then the protagonist jumps in. Andorra, watch out. She looks at him, wondering if he's really trying to protect her. He takes a blow to the face and keeps acting. Even if I die, I won't give up. Andorra, run. The fake shaman sneers that none of them are getting away using that chance. Andorra runs. He told me to go, so I can't stay here. Meanwhile, the other three start talking. The protagonist says, Xiaoyan, make it more believable. She almost saw through it. Xiaoyan says sorry, hidden behind a tree. Andorra thinks they're hopeless. There's no way she can stop that guy, so they can die if they want. But then the protagonist falls right in front of her. While the shaman's voice says Andorra is fast but weak right now, so she couldn't have gone far. The poor girl is almost crying. The protagonist lies there with empty eyes, clearly at the limit. Andorra, it's okay, you don't have to do anything. At last, her status changes from hostile to neutral. The system comments that watching him risk himself for her still only moved her to neutral. This girl is really hard to deal with. He weakly says he's cold and asks her to hold his hand before he dies. Andorra hesitates, then reaches out. The contract flashes and it works. He had assumed the monster needed to accept it, but as long as there's an open slot, touching hands is enough. Andorra jerks back. Wait, what did you do? What kind of magic is this? Xiao Beijing rushes over, asking what happened. The contract is already complete and the warrior girl is about to lose it. Even the protagonist is surprised. He didn't think a simple touch would be enough when he contracted Sherp. There had to be at least some agreement, but whatever, it worked. Now he just needs an excuse. Andorra explodes. One faked being dead. One pretended to be the shaman, and another lied about the contract. You're all liars. I want to be alone. I don't want to be anyone's contracted beast. She runs off, only to end up right back where she started. What just happened? The protagonist tells her the truth. Once a magic contract is made, a monster can't go too far from its contractor. So escaping now will be much harder. She curses him and screams that she'll never be a prisoner again. But no matter what she tries, her power doesn't work on him. Where did my power go? Calmly, he says he doesn't know how the contract formed, but now that it's sealed, she can't hurt him. She drops to the ground in defeat. The protagonist then brings up her mind magic. Before the contract, she did try to control him, didn't she? She stammers out a denial. Manhwa cuts in, saying he gets it now. When Andorra tried to control him, his stronger contract must have pushed back and caused a backlash. That isn't what happened at all, but the protagonist goes along with it and says that sounds right. Xiao Beijing adds that since Andorra tried to control him first, this isn't really his fault. The poor lizard girl starts to cry. Why does she always meet such cruel people? She's just a lizard. Manhwa isn't buying it. She ran the second that guy showed up, and when she came back, she tried to seize his mind. The protagonist ends it there. Like it or not, the contract is done and she'll have to live with it. She tried to control him first, so she can't blame him. Andorra sighs. It's just a magic contract, right? There has to be some way to break it. She spends the whole day trying to undo the contract, but the ancient god's magic is unlike anything she knows. On the second day, she finally comes to him and asks to talk. Since he made a contract with her, he must want something. If she gives him what he wants, will he let her go? The protagonist looks at her evenly. What he needs is a monster girl who can fight for him. Until he finds a replacement, she'll have to protect him. Andorra grumbles that he's the worst, but she doesn't have much choice. Fine, she'll protect him as long as he frees her once he finds someone else, so they make the deal. At the same time, deep in a cave, Luca and his group finish off the boss there. Luca wipes away sweat and says that fight was rough, but they finally won. Now they should head back and check their loot. Then a message window appears. Kingdom of the Goblins, it says the ancient warriors have done well. The smoke over the world will clear, and after all these trials they must now help bring the goblin world to an end. Luca is shocked, so everything so far was only a small fight. A main quest appears. Enter the Goblin Empire. Far in the northern mountains lies a huge goblin empire, with ranks, dynasties, and a full civilization. The objective is to reach it and learn about it. Everyone is confused. Goblin Kingdom? What is that? Luca figures everyone in the raid got the same mission. Maybe this is their reward. Then the system starts handing out prizes, and of course, Luca's team takes first place. He gives an excited speech, saying it's time to hunt down the Goblin Empire. They split their forces before, but now all the captains need to unite for this new front. Meanwhile, the protagonist's group also gets rewards for helping defeat the boss. They receive 1,500 points and a golden chest. They open it right away, staring as it shines. Inside is ecstasy, an epic great item. It's a hypnosis tool that plants a mental suggestion in the target. Whether it works depends on the gap between the user's mind power and the target's. If it succeeds, the target can be controlled for 1 minute, and it can be used 10 times. Shalian frowns and says it seems kind of useless. If the target gets hit, the hypnosis breaks, so it doesn't sound very practical. Panway agrees, but the protagonist thinks otherwise. The ancient gods don't give useless rewards. They just haven't figured out how to use it yet. So for now, they'll keep it. There's no direct reward tied to the Goblin Kingdom quest. So he thinks this is only the starting mission. Shalian points out that Luke's group is much bigger, so they'll explore faster. Panway turns to Endura. Since she's lived here so long, she should know where the Goblin Kingdom is. The protagonist reminds her that she can't lie to her contractor. Following Endura's directions and riding the cloud, they quickly reach the Goblin Kingdom. The place is far bigger than any city they've seen. Just seeing it triggers the mission. The first person to enter the Goblin Kingdom will get 100 points, but since it's already late, the group decides to camp on the mountain until morning. He summons Chirp from the shadows to watch over Panway and Shalian. While he goes to talk with Endura, she's annoyed at first, but softens when he tells her to relax and says he likes her more now. That makes her blush a little. Endura asks what he wants. He asks right back what she's hiding, and she eyes him with suspicion. As he presses closer, he traps her, and says she's still hiding her real power. She pauses, then asks how he knows. He says it's obvious she's still trying to enslave them. If she's this confident, she must have another trick. He tells her it'd be easier if she were honest. With a sigh, she reveals a small spell in her hand and admits he'd have figured it out anyway. Her plan was to plant seeds of life. The protagonist asks what that means. She says it's a spell she created after a lot of research, but it only works on someone who fully trusts her. Once it takes hold, they become her puppet. The spell's conditions are very hard to set up, so she acted pitiful to earn their trust. She never thought it would end like this. The protagonist thinks it over. The conditions for her magic really are strict, but with the hypnosis item they could control almost anyone. The system notes that because he's guessed her plans so many times, she's starting to fear him. A friendly partnership would have been better, but fear can also help him use her power. Well done, boy. The protagonist gives a crooked smile. He wanted to handle everything the easy way, but things turned out this way, so only the outcome matters now. The next morning, they watched the goblins working inside the empire. Its defenses were tight. Ballistas, spearmen, and a fortified base. Getting in wouldn't be easy. Lin Hao admitted there was no way in from above, and charging the front was hopeless. This place was basically sealed shut. The system added that even the patrols were strong. Around level 6, those patrol goblins were also completely loyal, so mind games wouldn't work on them. The three were worn out. No one had found a way in. Sayan Qing said she had checked both east and west and found nothing. The guards stayed alert, and only goblins were allowed inside. Wei had searched the whole wall and came back with the same answer. Lin Hao then took out a disguise pill, but there was only one that meant just one person could enter, so they agreed Lin should go. Suing trusted him, and Wei had no desire to rush into danger disguised. Lin Hao got in line to enter. He noticed everyone else was carrying something while his hands were empty. For a second he wondered if he'd messed up still, He got through with no trouble. The mission to enter the Goblin Empire was complete, and because he did it alone, he got 50 extra points. While checking the mission screen, a few noisy goblins slammed into him and rushed off shouting for everyone to run. The Grand Prince was about to appear to them. Seeing him was the highest honor a commoner could get. Then they ran into a guard who stopped the crowd. The system identified him as a temple guard, whose church brainwashing had turned his faith absolute. A priest had blessed him, so his physical strength was low, but he used support magic. The system warned Lin how to be careful. There were also the prince's guards, even stronger and able to cast magic too. Two of them sounded trumpets, and two carriages rolled in, pulled by huge beasts. Because of the drawn curtains, Lin Hao couldn't see who was inside, so no new panel popped up, but the system gave him a mission anyway. It told him to become the blade that destroys the Goblin Kingdom. These creatures didn't deserve civilization. He had to hide inside, gather information, and bring the kingdom down. The longer he stayed, the more unrest he could create for bonus rewards. Current unrest 0. Lin, the protagonist, guessed everyone got this mission after entering, but then he felt eyes on him and started to panic. Had someone seen through his disguise? He decided to leave before he got exposed, but as he turned away, he ran into another goblin who knocked him flat. The goblin sneered at him for being a cave goblin and said trash like him had no right to come see his highness. They belonged in caves forever. Chirp wanted to jump out and cut them apart, but Undura stopped her outside the kingdom. The two monster girls were already arguing. Chirp was mad because Undura kept acting like she wanted Lin Hao's favor, while Undura snapped back that she didn't care about pleasing him. She just wanted out of the contract. Then they saw Lin Hao. 1100th coming back. He stared at them, confused about what was going on. Chirp immediately lunged at Undura, and Undura calmly used her boss skill. Chirp landed a hit, but Undura healed almost right away. Undura mocked her, saying she was pretty average. Without her leader skill, she couldn't even outdamage Undura's healing. Chirp was just about to activate that leader power when Hao stepped in. He stopped her, saying she couldn't use boss skills on an ally. Then he added that Undura was petty and awful, sure, but Chirp was still his favorite, so she should try to be more patient with her. Undura silently fumed, thinking she could hear every word, but after watching them fight, Hao realized how much weaker Chimp had become. She was only level 1 now, while the goblins inside were already level 3. Even being a boss wasn't enough anymore. He decided it was time to check her talent tree and follow it. His passive pointed him toward collecting sacred spider relics. The only route that matched was Power of Faith, a special evolution line. That path required recovering different spider relics. As Chirp restored her bloodline, Shed become more and more saint-like, and the powers Shed gain would depend on the relics, but it was an extremely hard route, so he had to choose carefully. Hao knew this was the toughest option, but he was already learning that the ancient gods rewarded risk with the best prizes, so he opened the for restoring Power of Faith, just to see how it worked. It said the power had to pass through a special magic circle and couldn't be transferred directly. First it had to be stored in an object, then given to the spider monster who could turn that faith power into extra strength. Hao focused on the words magic circle and looked at Andorra. She was the only one here who might know that stuff. He let out a breath. He needed to stay in the Goblin City for the mission, but to evolve Chirp he also needed Power of Faith. Then an idea hit him. In the future, Wei and Suing could enter the kingdom too and help. He started talking it over with them. They both blinked in confusion. Enter too? What was he planning? Hao explained that inside the city, the rulers and the church were already fighting over faith. So what would happen if a third force appeared? The two looked puzzled. Did he want them to start preaching to goblins? He said it would be hard if the factions were united, but they weren't. The place was full of power struggles. If they introduced a third religion, it might actually work, especially since they could perform miracles. Chirp would become the face of their cult, and Doria would handle the miracles. He decided to call it the Cult of the Sacred Spider. And Doria hated the name and said they couldn't use the lizard like that, but Hao knew how to talk. Taking her hand, he told her not to get upset. She would benefit too. While Chirp handled the image of the group, and Doria could move freely and get revenge on the goblins. She immediately pictured herself all dressed up, wondering why the goblins got to enjoy life. Even so, she still hesitated. Then Hao reminded her the city was full of fanatic priests, knights, and crazy goblins. She could get captured again. That finally made her agree, though she clearly had her own plans. In her head, she figured he wanted to build this religion with her healing magic, and maybe she'd find a way to break the contract later. But when she looked at her own hands, she remembered the truth. Her healing took a little life force from the target each time. It was like trading away years of life for quick recovery. The protagonist just watched, and the system warned that her feelings were shifting not because of the cult, but because she saw a path to freedom. Tien thought to himself that she was trying to slip out of his control still, and Doria said that if revenge on the goblins was part of the deal, she accepted. MC answered that it sounded like a partnership that helped them both. In truth, they were both thinking the same thing. Soon, this contract would be broken. He couldn't help thinking that compared to his spider girl, this lizard was way more sly. Just then, their strong companion walked over and said they had a problem. From what Head learned, the goblins fought among themselves, but their religion was still focused on one god, and most of them had gone through some kind of brainwashing that meant people might reject a new cult entirely. Growing their influence could be hard, and they might even get wiped out as heretics. Hea was about to answer, but Indoria cut in and said that if they wanted followers, they needed to go to the Shangtsung district. When they asked what that was, she said the lower city. Then she pulled out a chalkboard like a teacher and scolded them for not knowing. She explained that the Goblin Kingdom had a huge gap between rich and poor. The wealthy lived in the upper city, and everyone else was pushed below. Life there was brutal. People worked just to eat, while the temple and royal family squeezed them dry. In a place filled with that much suffering, miracles would draw people in fast. Everyone clapped and praised her, and Indora smugly said of course she was impressive, but Hao wanted to know how she knew so much. After hesitating, she claimed she'd been trapped there for a long time and didn't want to talk about it. The protagonist only had 11 hours left on his disguise pill, so they settled on the poor district of Shaoxing as the first place to spread their religion, while MC kept infiltrating the city. From outside, Su Ying and Wei would try to support them however they could. With the plan set, they moved through the Goblin City. Unfortunately, Indora didn't actually know the way to the lower city. Then Chirp said she could smell something strange, a heavy corruption. Following that scent, they found what seemed to be the entrance to the lower city. Reaching it was rough, a long staircase that took about an hour to descend. At the bottom, they found crushing poverty and ruined goblins, but they also noticed a crowd gathered nearby. It was some kind of assembly, and one poor goblin was being whipped. Church officials were beating the goblins for being lazy and not working hard enough. One goblin on the ground, holding his daughter, begged a shaman. He said Head bought all the indulgence coupons, but his daughter still hadn't gotten better. The shaman coldly replied that he hadn't bought enough to cover her sins. The mother burst into tears, and the shaman spread his arms, saying this was what happened when the gods rejected someone. If they wanted mercy, they had to keep worshipping and begging for blessings. Then he made the kind of offer those creeps always make to women. He lifted her chin, making his meaning clear. She refused, so he backed off. No one there was living well. An old woman stepped in to comfort them, but then someone stopped right in front of her, and there stood the boy. The hooded boy raised his hands. By the sacred power of the spider, I bring blessings. The woman's wounds started closing right away. The crowd froze in confusion. She was glowing. An old woman gasped. Wait, Eve seen this before. Even the shaman could only stare as the injuries disappeared. Then Li Haka to new mission. He had to break the temple's hold on the lower city. If 100 goblins lost faith in it, Head earned 100 points and 100 agitation points. The healing was really Endura working through the shadows. He told her to make it flashy, but to remember they were preaching the sacred spider, so she sent out a huge spider-shaped healing aura. It looked holy, but creepy too, and the goblins were stunned. Still, for the mother whose daughter had just been saved, it was a real miracle. An old goblin woman stepped forward and asked, "Messenger, who are you?" Li Hyunxing noticed his pill was wearing off, but figured this was the best moment to lock in their faith. A second later, his true form was exposed. The goblins flinched, but the mother calmed them down. She recognized him as one of the two-legged beasts. Yet since he saved her daughter, she wasn't scared still. If he failed to pass himself off as a divine messenger, he was in trouble. So he went with one of his favorite moves. Alright everyone, don't panic. This form is the price of being God's messenger. I was chosen to carry everyone's pain, no matter how heavy it is. He added that the sacred spider wanted him to know even human suffering, because this faith loved all living beings equally. For goblins abandoned in the lower city, hearing about a religion that treated everyone the same, hit hard. One by one they dropped to their knees and pledged themselves to the sacred spider. Li Hao could only think how easy this was. They even made a hand sign for the sacred spider. Later, Li Hao protagonist was invited into a goblin home, where a young girl awkwardly apologized for how poor they were. He didn't care at all. Then a blonde goblin girl passed by and dropped a stone from her basket. Li Hao picked it up and asked about it. She said it was just something she mined and didn't know much about. Since the temple wouldn't take it as a tithe, she kept it as decoration. From the shadows, Ondura's tail brushed his foot, making it clear she wanted him to keep it. The blonde girl headed off to make dinner. Once she was gone, Ondura slipped out of the shadows. She reminded him Shed already helped plenty and wanted that stone as payment. Li Hao, in his usual way, immediately guessed the stone mattered. Ondura snapped at him to hand it over, calling it useless to a human. Then the system cut in, reminding him her real goal was still breaking their contract since rare magic crystals mattered to her. Shed behaved for now, but the system clearly doubted he'd give it up. Li Hao the 1100th pocketed it instead. If Ondura wanted a magic crystal that badly, there was obviously a reason. She cursed under her breath. Shocked he even knew what it was, Ondura lunged for it, but Li Hao dodged back and caught her in a headlock. A lizard lock, really a magic crystal, was exactly what he needed, so he offered a deal, help him again, and he'd have the new followers search for more crystals. The next one they found would be hers. She didn't buy it. From her view, she was doing all the work and getting nothing. Li Hao realized he'd need a different approach. Ondura narrowed her eyes at him. He switched to sweet talk, acting weak, lonely, and helpless, begging her to make things easier, but that soft approach didn't impress her at all. Even so, Ondura knew he was messing with her, and the system was helping. Humans were full of tricks. At last, tired of the back and forth, she told him to just say what he wanted. Li Hao explained that he wanted to carve a magic circle into the crystal. It looked like this. He drew the pattern and asked if she recognized it. Ondura said it resembled the circle used to trap her, one that absorbed energy, but she didn't know how to recreate it exactly. That was enough for Li Hao. Now he knew he needed an energy extraction circle, but Ondura warned him not to try using that circle on this crystal. She'd been the core of the magic that imprisoned her, and only survived because her vitality was almost endless. A magic crystal, though, wouldn't last long at all. At best, it would be drained and destroyed in 15 minutes. Li Hao stared at the problem and blurted out, "So this is the wall of magic? Man, this is complicated." If that was true, then they needed a much bigger crystal to store enough energy. His whole plan was to gather power from faith and use it to help Little Chirp evolve. A little later, the blonde goblin girl returned with food that looked awful, but proudly called it delicious. Li Hao forced a smile and acted grateful. Just as he was about to eat, an explosion shook the area, and they rushed outside. What caused that blast? Li Hao looked toward the noise and asked what was over there. The girl said it was the mining area, and at this time there should still be plenty of goblins working inside. She wanted to run over and check. Li Hao stopped her, telling her to stay calm. If anyone was hurt, he'd bring the sacred spider's blessing. That alone deeply moved her. On the way, Lin the protagonist grabbed a cloth, thinking he should change his look a little. This was the perfect chance. Besides growing the cult, he could search for magic crystals too. At the collapsed mine, injured goblins were pouring out in panic inside a hut. Healing was already underway, and some goblins were starting to worship the one saving them. One goblin knelt beside his fallen brother and begged the great sacred spider to save him, promising faithful devotion in return. As warm energy flowed into him, he realized it had to be the spider's blessing, but he still begged for his brother to be saved first. Watching from inside Lin, he realized this method was way more efficient. With Endura healing from a distance, they'd already gained 39 followers. Of course, Endura wasn't doing it out of kindness. Each time she healed someone, she used their life force and secretly kept a little for herself. The system mocked her for being calculating, pointing out she was skimming energy during every treatment. Clearly, she still didn't see Lin the 1100th as one of her own. Lin, he didn't care. No matter how much energy she stole, ancient god magic worked differently from hers. The real problem was the mine entrance had collapsed, so he couldn't inspect it. Once the injured were treated, Lin, he declared the healing complete. Endura slipped back into the shadows, worn out. Then he checked the ranking and saw all this chaos had raised the city's agitation by only 001, so if he wanted to finish this mission, Head need to cause a lot more trouble. Soon after, the blonde goblin girl came running over with a warning. The Bone Gang was coming. If they heard about a new god here, they wouldn't take it well. She explained that the lower city was controlled by three powers: the Bone Gang, the Heroine Association, and the Temple. Then they looked over and spotted the Bone Gang leader, Andres. He immediately pegged him as the boss. What really caught his eye, though, was the crystal-covered shoulder pad, beautiful and definitely worth taking. Nearby, a terrified goblin shook as he begged forgiveness and promised to clean up the mine. Andres just glared, demanding to know how they planned to pay tribute. Now that the mine had collapsed without payment, there'd be no protection. He asked how much the loss would cost, and one goblin answered that it was around 100 mining carts worth. Andres exploded in rage. 100 carts? Then he crushed the goblin's head without a second thought. He ranted that they'd cost him too much and were now just lying around uselessly. Even he was stunned by how brutal he was. A system message popped up. Royal Goblin of the City, Hostility 30, Strength 14, Agility. The system explained that anything threatening his money made him snap. Head wiped out the whole mine over it. If the protagonist wanted the route to more magic crystals, he should make this guy happy. The 1100th could tell one thing right away. Andres was obsessed with money. The system added that he probably knew where the crystals came from, so following him quietly could pay off. Andres then turned to the workers and barked that this delay was their fault. Everyone would now bring 100 extra carts of minerals or suffer the consequences. The goblins shook in fear. Then Andres shouted for his men to move out. They had more mines to inspect. He told the goblin girl to stay behind. He had something else to handle. After tailing Andres for a while, he figured out the pattern. Problem or not, the gang boss kept showing up to bully everyone just to remind them who was in charge. Eventually, Andres entered a mine with no goblin guards outside, which struck he as odd. Could this be the magic crystal mine? The blonde girl had said the temple wouldn't accept magic crystals for miracles, so this had to be important. Sadly, to go further, Head need to wake Endora. Little chirp reluctantly drags her out of hiding. Endora looks mad. You better have a good reason for waking me up. He tells her to relax. There's a magic crystal mine here. Endora checks it out. She puts a hand on the ground, uses her magic, and finds a huge crystal deposit right away.